Hey everybody, how we're doing? Looks like we are live here, streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me okay. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, typos. Tell me about it, Amy, and your stuff. How's everybody doing tonight? Good to see you. Tiger Lily, great to see you, honey. Got my Indiana coffee mug here with me as always. It's ubiquitous. It's a part of me now. All right, sounds good. We're ready to go. Let me go ahead and turn that music the rest of the way down. Tonight, from the great state of Tennessee, all the way from Rogersville, going to have Cathida Ranae come in, tell us some spooky supernatural experiences that she's had. I think she's backstage here now. Mulder says welcome. Everybody else, welcome in. Let me run through the chat here real quick and see who we got. Amy's here. Thin Lizzie Borden's here. Christina Pearson appears to be Cathida's cousin. Vixen Doe's here. David Stewart. Mark Longoria. Chiro Sands. I hope I'm saying that right. Mulder likes the way it sounds. The joys of doing anything live. But anyway, Chiro, I subscribe to your channel. You've got some incredible music over there. I want to talk to you sometime. And Midwest Night Watchers, your hubby, he's in here too. I subscribe to his channel. We're all Facebook friends. Let's see who else we got. Go check those two channels out. You guys are mods now. If you want to drop a link to your channel, go ahead. Cats on Parade, good to see you. Vixen Doe, all the way from snowy Maine. I guess it's snowy up there. 13 past midnight. Who's that? Oh, that's me. Ted Branston's here. Oh, Winbach, howdy. How you doing? Let's see. Anybody else? Are you kidding me? The Greek Elvirus. She says, hello, folks. Good to see you there. Are you kidding me? Paula Edwards saying hello from Facebook. Said we are simulcasting YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. So comments from all over the place. Nora Harris is here. Nora, I hope you're feeling better. I know you were a mite puny, as they say down south over the holidays. Hope you're feeling better. South Texas is where Max from. Paul Edwards says hello on Facebook. Gutty Slate. It's the Salty Army. Anella, I hope I got it right this time. Anella Gottfried. I can remember the translation for it. It means angel of God's peace. She's going to join us one night soon and tell some experiences that she's had that will blow your mind. Did everybody go over to Missing Persons and Mysteries and watch that Mount Shasta video that premiered over there with Kay Love? That's an amazing story. She's going to join us over here one night and talk some other mystical things. She's a very special young lady. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Horror Master Dice Rowland is going to join us to talk about some spooky movies. I'm hoping she talks about that new Renfield movie. Have you seen the previews for that? I saw the preview today. Nicolas Cage as Dracula. It's either going to be really, really good or so bad that it's good. But either way, I'm looking forward to it. Renfield, only in theaters on sometime in April. But it looks good. Who else we got? Tanya Hodge, Bobby Farron. Looks like we have Lily Pond. Good to see you back. All right, I'm waiting for Cathida, if she's listening to me, to get back on camera there. And I think she's ready to come in. Let me switch over. Let's do this layout here. Wait a minute, I see an arm. Hey, Mary Eddington Arthur, good to see you. 50-50 in today's Hollywood. Yeah, at least it's not another comic book movie. And they did take something that already exists. I think they ought to just leave the classics alone, but Nicolas Cage as Dracula signed me up. It looks like there's some humor in it. It's an updated version. Renfield is at a support group talking about how he needs to get out of a toxic relationship. So it's a modern vampire, Dracula story for the modern times. Now, to me, Bela Lugosi is the quintessential Dracula. Nobody can ever play it better than Bela, but I'd like to see what Nick Cage will do with it. And Renfield, my favorite Renfield was portrayed by Tom Waits, and I think that was Bram Stoker's Dracula. I've seen all of them; they all kind of run together after a while. I can have a cat, but he was gonna he was gonna drink the cat's blood. So I know you cat lovers aren't on board with that. Still waiting on Cathida to get in place here. Okay, I'm watching her backstage. Yeah, Bela Lugosi's dead. One of my favorite Bauhaus songs. I saw Peter Murphy solo, and he did a version of it too. No, what's going on with my hair? Tiger Lily, you need to come and run your fingers through it like you like to do, because it looks like a stump full of granddaddies tonight. Worst hair on YouTube right here. But at least I've got hair. That's a plus. Don't care if it turns gray, as long as it doesn't turn loose. We're good. Okay, still waiting here. Hanging out. I got 32 of you in here. And I just wanted to point out something. If you look on the page there where you can like and subscribe and stuff, there's a new button there as of today called join. You can actually subscribe to the channel, join the channel, and members get perks. And just for let's say the first 10 people that become that join the channel, you get all kinds of perks, and you get special members only chats and early release videos. And for the first 10 people that have become members of the channel, I'm going to have a drawing for a set of my books signed. I'll send you all 5 of them. And also, Saturday night, Thin Lizzy Borden's going to be in here reading Oracle and Tarot cards. Going to be doing some giveaways then, too. Just, look at me. I'm a mess. Match? What is this match of which you speak? The older you get, the less you care. I got my Strange Familiars t-shirt on. Got to represent Tim Renner's fantastic podcast. If you've never listened to Strange Familiars, go over there. Hey, first member, Julie Smith. Thank you, Julie. Thank you for joining in, part of the fun. Lots of good stuff coming from members this year. And Ted Branston with a super sticker, super chat, 10 pounds. Have a beer on me. I think I'll save that. I'll come to England and I'll buy me and you a cider in a pub. How's that sound, buddy? But thank you for that. Let's see who else. Yeah, then Lizzie says she'll be using fortune telling cards Saturday night as well, so she can do the yes or no questions. If we had some people last week asking for yes or no, so big fun over there. Going to be giving away all kinds of prizes. I've got as they used to say on the radio, I've dipped into the station stash here at Hacienda de Stockton and Scotland. Okay. Scotland, that works too. I don't even drink a Guinness. But Ted says that sounds awesome. Still don't see Cathida. I see her, I think she's in her mama's kitchen. Hey, Vixen Doe joined. Thank you, Vixen Doe. Thank you for being a member of the channel. I love you guys. And the proceeds for this, it's to go to keep the channel, pay the bills and pay the writers. It's a break even thing right now. I'm not interested in making any money off this. I'm okay how I am, but I want to be able to pay my writers and pay them well. So everything here, it'll go to the writers. Anything left over will go to charity. My favorite charity is Old Friends Senior Dog Rescue in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. I've done Facebook fundraiser for mine and Mulder's birthday, October 31st. Used to give it to the Pixie Project. That's Mulder's alma mater. They rescued him from the high desert of California and brought him to Portland, and I adopted him 7 years ago in June or July. And but here lately, I'm really digging what the Old Friends Senior Pet Sanctuary is doing. Mulder's getting on up there. He was about a year old when I got him, so he's around 8 now. He's getting on up there. He's getting close to my age. But I like giving to animal places that take care of animals. And Senior Friends is a place where old friends literally can go and live out their days in peace and have people that care for them. Got some people coming in from Twitch. Hey, all you Twitch people, Unseen Paranormal Podcast, Eric Freeman Sims is there. Go check him out if you haven't already. He's a great guy. Bernice Sullivan, better late than never. Farty Hands. Farty Hands. Hello from Twitch. Well, hello, Farty Hands, but it says YouTube on your little icon there. But either way, we don't care. Glad you're watching wherever you're watching us from. Farty Hands, it's a little bit of everything. There's stories, there's narrations, production videos, live streams, chill and chat. I play a lot of classic horror stories from the Victorian era, narrated by our fine friends over at LibriVox. There's no telling what you'll see tonight. But tonight we have a special guest with us, Cathida Ranae, Tennessee girl, going to tell us some of her stories, and I think she's finally ready there. Let me go ahead and bring her in here. Let's have a nice 13 past midnight welcome for Miss Cathida Ray. Hey, Cathida. I said Cathida Ray. Cathida Ranae, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing good. You sound like home.
I know. Yesterday you said that. You sound like home. Yeah, I'm sure I do.
East
the little
Tennessee
hillbilly.
myself. I've been through Rogersville, but I don't remember stopping and looking around there. If it's where I think it is, it's up past Morristown, going toward Sigorinsville and up that way.
We welcome you on back down.
Does 81 run by there? I used to take 75 up to 81 where it splits off, and then I'd go up into Virginia and back down into Tennessee when I lived in Mountain City. Kind of roundabout way to get there, but that's a strange part of Tennessee. I mean, the whole state's strange, but up there, as my granny used to say, there's a haint, never holler. So there's Sensabaugh tunnels down there in Kingsport, and then somewhere Cathida's been helping me look for it, and so is Sean Graham over on Chasing the Truth Paranormal. He's got a great show, but somewhere in that general area. Leyland Gas, hey, how you doing? Yeah, we are on YouTube, 13 past midnight. He's messaging in from Facebook. It's live all four places that I'm broadcasting to right now: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. But somewhere up there, there's a guy that requested to be buried standing up. And the girl that I was dating at the time, she knew where it was. And we were going somewhere else. I think she went to ETSU, so she's an alumni. And it's haunted. Several of the buildings up there are haunted. I think we were on the way there. And wherever we passed through this little place, there was a graveyard. And out at the edge near the road, there's like a little mound. And there's looks like a family crypt, but it was covered over in dirt. There's a little concrete door with like a jail cell door over it. And she said, see that? And I said, yeah. She said, that guy wanted to be buried standing up. And inside the burial vault, it's standing on end in there. He's buried standing up. And I remember saying, well, I hope they didn't turn him the wrong way and he's standing on his head. But, hey, we've got another new member there, Lily Pond. Thank you, Lily Pond. Great to have you. And again, there's lots of perks for members. You get little badges beside your name. You get custom emojis. I'll probably have to send out something to explain all that. But members only chats and streams, sneak peeks at upcoming videos. There's several different, or there's just one tier right now, but several different perks there. Amy, darling, thank you for that super sticker. Amy coming in to us tonight from Florida. Yeah.
Is there any way on my end where I can see the live chat as well? Or
I don't think you can from over on the left hand Streamyard, over on the right-hand side. Do you see a tab that says comments?
No, I see my little picture, but underneath mine and yours in the frame, I see where it says mic, cam chat, more, and leave.
Okay, over all the way on the far right side of your screen. Of course, you're on a phone though, aren't you?
Yeah.
You may not be able to see it. The only thing I can tell you is open up the video in a YouTube, and you won't be able to see you see yourself on camera, but you'll be delayed, and then you can see the chat. I've got a separate laptop over here with it open, but I'm just reading it out of the. Yeah, I don't know why in StreamYard they have it set up to where you can't see the chat.
I mean, I have to click chat, but then I lose the picture. But it's kind of like an overlay. I can see through it, but
okay. Well, there you go. But just make sure your sound is down on whatever you're watching the YouTube channel on, or we'll get a horrible echo.
Turn down the what now? Make sure.
Turn down your volume on whatever you're watching it on, but I don't hear
Okay.
anything, so you're probably okay. Just mute the video. If you turn your volume down, we can't hear you. Well, we had a time. She had just trying to get her computer set up, and we couldn't get that to work. Finally figured out we could do it on her phone, and it looks good. And it looks like
Yeah.
you're in a cabin or something there, got lace curtains, and
Yeah. I'm at my mom's right now.
that
I told you
Willow.
about my dog situation. What ended up,
Yeah,
I had to bring my dogs up here with me, but they're locked in another room, so they won't be acting crazy with me and climbing
and
everywhere and barking.
thank you for joining. May have a couple giveaways here. If I get more than for every 10 that joins, I'll have another giveaway. But
I
I
can.
appreciate y'all subscribing. Hey, Layla and Gaz here. Another friends from England. They're going to go. I'm planning a trip to England possibly this year, late this year. And I'm going to do the speaking tour. My friend Mark Anthony Wyatt, who's also a fine author, I encouraged him to get started. He read my book and he said, I've got some stories to tell. Write them down. I think he's on his third book now. He lives in Cornwall, UK, and he's invited me over. He's married to an American lady that lives in Illinois. She's got a house there. They spend half their time in Illinois, half their time in the UK. He said, if we're in the UK, come and stay with us. If we're not there, feel free to stay in our house. So, but his friend, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he is the head of the UK Paranormal Speakers Bureau. And he said he would book me on a tour of any place I wanted to go. And the thing, a lot of Americans don't realize if you've never been there, England is really small. I mean, I think you could drive from one end of it to the other in the daytime. So I could hit a lot of different places and do like a several day speaking tour. But anyway, enough about that. Cathida's the star of the show, and I'm hogging all her time.
Oh, shucks. You're the
So,
star now. Let's not get there.
how's your weather there today? Cold and
Well,
been
it was
sunny
mild.
today in
It
the
was
high desert.
very cold this morning, and it was a little bit, better through the day. It's turning back cold right now. So I don't like
23
it.
when I got up before daylight. 40 right now here in the
We
high
were in
desert.
single digits a week or two ago.
Yeah, we had that a couple of weeks ago. Woke up at 8 or 9 degrees. That's too cold for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I
we
hate.
were getting into stuff in your area. That, like I said, Kingsport, there's Sensabaugh Tunnel. There's Rotherwood Mansion, which is a private
Yep.
residence. There's a lady doctor that lives there. But if you go around down the road from where it is, Holston River's right there. There's a little roadside park down there, and I actually waded the river and went out as far as I could and got as close to the house, got up to my waist with my camera, got pictures of the house. Figured they couldn't run me out of the river. But Holston River, it's not something you want to stand in for a long time. Now it's haunted too. They've seen a lady of the river, supposedly one of the girls that lived in Rotherwood Mansion flung herself in that river, and they've seen her spirit floating around down there. But now that's getting close to where we are. What have you got there in Rogersville? Have you got a Crybaby Bridge or a White Lady Bridge?
There's the Maxwell Academy. It's rumored to be. It's an old schoolhouse. It's supposedly haunted. I told you about that story one night. There's some things that supposedly go on in towards Sigornsville, on Bunker Hill. Goodness, there's several things.
You told me, but tell the folks here, they want to hear it too.
Me and my friend, Sarah Yunt, we wanted to go spook hunting, so we went out and we went to Maxwell Academy. I saw it in the newspaper. It says, if you go, don't go alone, take a friend, things like that. So we go and we're taking pictures after we look at the cemetery across the street. Nothing particularly strange happened there. So we go across the street again back to the academy. And I had a phone and I'm putting it up in the window because I couldn't really see up in the window, but I could take a few pictures and review them in live time. And she had been talking about a baby, possibility that she may have been pregnant. And I'm like, wow, the phone is held up in the window, being very still, rested up against it, tilted. And I had my finger on the front to touch the OK button to take the pictures. So, it's tilted. It was down in the evening. There was no reflection, no glare, nothing like that. And when I went to go review the photos, you can see inside of this little schoolhouse. There's nothing for the first couple pictures. Then something white, kind of transparent, starts coming into frame
Wow.
from left to right. And the next picture, it looked like people. I didn't catch it at first. She's like, "Oh my goodness, are you serious?" I'm like, "What? What is it? What do you see?" You know, I just saw a lot of white, so my eyes didn't focus on it necessarily at first. And she's like, "Do you not see that woman? What she's holding?" And we're like, "Oh my God, it's a baby!" It looked like a lady in a big dress with a bonnet on her head, was holding a baby. Excuse me, a baby swaddled up, and a very tall man to her left, wearing some kind of hat. It was real tall and thin, but it looked like a woman in a dress holding a swaddled baby. After she had just been talking about a baby,
Wow.
maybe having a baby.
Kind of
And
a
she's
foreshadowing. Did she have a
asked me
baby?
about those pictures. Not necessarily then. She's got a couple now, but
There you go.
um,
Foretelling of the future.
she thought she was pregnant maybe at the time.
Yeah. Pam Smith, thank you for the super sticker. Looks like you got some more kinfolk in here. Let me see where'd you get off to. Terry McNutt says the weather here in East
Yep.
Tennessee is bipolar. Terry, we
Hi,
may be
Terry.
kinfolks as well. I'm kin to some McNutts on my mother's
Yep.
side. We tried to piece all that out. My grandmother's sister, Frenchie, and I think that was short for Francis. She married a man named Audrey McNutt, but they called him Ud, like UD, and that's East Tennessee for odd, I guess. But Frenchie and Ud, and boy, he was something else. He would walk around chewing gum with part of it hanging out of his mouth, or pull his pants way up under his armpits just to be silly. Funniest story I ever heard, they were living in Knoxville along the Tennessee River there. I think this is before they got married. He was living in a boarding house, and there was somebody on the bank of the river sitting up in a tree fishing. He was getting ready to shave. So he's back then, you had a bar soap and a brush, and he's getting his lather on, and he shaves, and he's finished, and he sees that guy out there in the tree. He gets the idea, this is odd for you. So he takes what was left of his shaving cream, puts it in his mouth, and he's just wearing like boxer shorts and a boy beater t-shirt. He goes running out like he was taking a fit. He shaking and spitting all this foam out of his mouth like he had. Back then, rabies was a real thing that everybody was afraid of. Hydrophobia.
Yeah.
Hydrophobia. Well, the guy in the tree looks at this spectacle and this man running out in his underwear, foaming at the mouth. He falls out of the tree into the Tennessee River.
Oh my goodness.
Now that's kind of stock I come from. So,
Terry, that's the McNutts that I was asking you about to see if maybe your family might know some of them. That's Steve was just showing you who they were.
From, up around Ramsey, Goose Paddle, that area. And I don't even think Goose Paddle exists anymore. That was a real place. It's just a little.
And that's not made. Yeah, that's not made.
Yeah, I've been there, but the graveyard there, where my great grandmother and a lot of my old relatives, great uncles and people like that are buried, and it's in somebody's cow pasture now, and it's fenced off. You have to trespass to get in there, but they know there's a cemetery in there, and they won't get after you if you're in there going to the cemetery. Last time I was there, it's growed up, and it's because it's in some trees and stuff too. There's little copse of trees there. You had to know where it was, or you couldn't even find it. But took my mom up there on Decoration Day, and she's some of her relatives that she remembers and stuff. I don't remember anybody that's buried up there, but went up there and swept the graves off and stuff. But it's in the woods in a cow pasture. So there you go. Only in Tennessee. Cathida, you were asking me about those tent graves. Now that's over in Middle Tennessee,
That's
where the Stockton family's from. That used to be called Ben Stockton, Tennessee, annexed into Jamestown. But look up Stockton Chapel Cemetery or Stockton Cemetery. It's a grave, and to keep animals or human grave robbers or
Robert grave. Yep.
They would because back then it wasn't uncommon for bodies to be stolen and sold to medical schools. Now, I don't know where they would have found a medical school over there at Jamestown, but
get the loot out of the caskets, anything that might have been buried in
marble slabs, and put them like in a tent formation over the grave. When I was a little kid, I was scared to death because I thought the bodies were just under those two little slabs. I didn't realize they were in a coffin 6 feet under. I thought they just stuck them in that tent, and some of them were broken, and you could see in them and stuff. I'm like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. But
I
those
hadn't
are
thought of it before, but I may be marked. Well, I've always liked this paranormal brouhaha since I was a child. I had a tombstone fall on me when I was a child on my leg.
there you go. I
Um,
think that's good luck if it didn't break your leg or something.
oh no, it didn't. But I had to have a patch, some kind of patch on the back of my leg, and I wore it nonstop, and I didn't want to take it off. And finally, my aunt, I believe, ripped it off, and I cried. I was like, "Put it back!" It was like part of me. I had it on there for so long. Also around here, there's Pressman's Home. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Tell us about that one though. I want you
Um,
to do most of the talking. Everybody hears me
uh,
all the time. You're a special guest.
I can't
You know,
really think of us.
it's
Well, I do know
well, I
some, but
can't
not
think of a
just little short
specific story
stories.
about yeah,
I
but
know
just
somebody that went there, and there was not supposed to be anybody in the building, and they had been working in the building actually, or someone that they were with had been. There was nobody in that area, no homeless people, nobody that they know of poking
mhm.
around in there, trespassing. But they kept seeing through one of the broken windows, the glass on the window, just a light going back and forth. But it was illuminated, but it wasn't casting light like onto the wall or the rest of the window or anything. It's just like a little
And
ball of
I've
light
seen some
moving around.
lights like that, like an orb of light that doesn't light up around it. It's just a light. I've seen those in the Smokies. They call them fairy lights or fairy lanterns or spook lights or all kinds of different things. The Brown Mountain Lights in North Carolina are like that to a degree. You ever been up there to see them? That's not too awful far from where you are if you go on up 81 and back down into Tennessee through Mountain City and Boone, North Carolina is just right there. When I lived in Mountain City, you had to go to either Boone or Johnson City if you
I
needed
believe I've
anything.
been through Boone. I've been to, I think it's Granite Falls,
Mhm.
Lenore. So
Yeah,
I think maybe Boone's right around in there. So
and the
my
name game
mama
is
claims she saw
yeah.
lots too,
Yeah, well, you see
right
them
outside
all
her
over the
window.
place. There's, I've known people that seen them in their yard, seen them in the trees. I saw one time in somebody. They had like a big backyard. Had been a garden at one time, and they didn't plant anything in there anymore. They had mowed it down, let kids play softball back there. I was driving by there one night and saw something about the size of a basketball just kind of bobbing along the tree line, and I watched it till it faded out or winked out. There was nobody there. It was just an orange light. So there's all kinds of stuff. Nikki Ray watched us on Facebook. She shared it out. Thank you, Nikki. I appreciate that. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, I think I said hi to you. UFO Bigfoot is here. Good to see you, buddy. I love you guys in the UFO community. Bigfoot Rob, Michigan Rob, I'm working on your video that's going to go up on this channel and on Bandcamp. Check out the Bandcamp page, stevestockton.bandcamp.com. If you want to listen to stuff that doesn't have commercials and you don't have to look at it, you can listen to it in the app on your phone and don't have to have your screen on at night. So I've heard people say that's the thing they don't like about YouTube is because you have to leave the screen on unless you pay for YouTube Premium. Go check out Bandcamp. The app's free. You can listen for free. You can download the
You
stuff if you want and put it on all your devices.
you have this channel and one that's really popular, and it's growing. How many are you up to now on the other one? It's
Missing Persons and Mysteries, we're just
Missing
under
Person
a quarter of a
Mysteries.
million. It's like
Hmm.
249,000 and something. We get about 2
I've
million
watched
views
that
a month.
for 2 or 3 years, I guess. I've watched that.
Yeah, that's 3 years about how long I've been narrating over there. And when I started over there, we didn't have 10,000. And I posted something on Facebook the other day, one of my memories that it puts up there. 2 years ago, we were celebrating 60,000. And now here we are, almost a quarter of a million. So uh, people love it. People love what I do.
Yep,
They like my voice. I like being the
they love
voice
your
of the
voice.
those voice. And and that's kind of our mission statement. If we have one, if we can bring one person home or give one family closure, then we're doing what's been laid on our heart to do. So it's now we get into the mystery side of that. I did Don Decker, the man who could make it rain. I remember seeing that on Unsolved Mysteries. I think it's back in the 80s about this guy. But I believe that was true demonic possession because he was able to make it rain indoors at
Oh yeah,
will.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And he was out of jail to for his father or grandfather's
Compassionate
funeral.
leave for his grandfather's funeral. But what they
Yep,
didn't know is grandfather had abused him when he was a child. So he harbored a lot of resentment toward his grandfather. And they think that was the impetus that
poltergeist.
he was able to get this energy. Yeah. And when he was in a restaurant across the street, it started raining in there. Lady took a crucifix off the wall and put it on him, and it burned his skin. And then when he went back to jail after his compassionate leave was over, one of the jail guards handed him a gold cross, and it burned him. But he was making it rain in the jail. He made it rain in the warden's office.
Those
Uh,
people afraid of him. I mean, like big
yeah,
bad boys
they're
in there,
scared to death
terrified.
of. But the priest, the one preacher had already come and prayed over him, and it stopped, and then it started back. But there's even some conjecture that he wanted it to come back. But finally, the pastor or whatever they had there at the prison, he prayed over him, and that was the end of it, as far as I know. But somebody commented on the video that he went back to jail in 2012 for trying to burn a restaurant down or something. So I don't know.
Oh
But anyway,
man.
it's a compelling story. That's over on Missing Persons and Mysteries, my other channel. This is kind of my sandbox over here, my fun channel, my paranormal channel, stuff that doesn't fit
Laid
us.
back.
I like to do it over here. Yeah, I love these chats that we have guests on. Um, if you can't tell, I like to talk. So there you go. Now what else is in the
And
area
you know,
there?
just two old hillbillies right now talking. We might go for a couple hours, 4 hours.
As my
um,
granny used to say, there's a haint, never holler. And haint, that could be a
yeah.
ghost, that could be a cryptid. Haints, boogers, and witches, and all three could mean anything. A haint was
Well,
usually a
speaking of
ghost,
witches,
but not necessarily. A booger was some kind of creature or critter like a Bigfoot or also known as a woolly booger. And then a witch, that could be like the traditional witch, but my grandmother called herself a witch. So she didn't talk, she wasn't about that kind of witch, but there was
holistic
a witch
medicine.
that would bewitch you, that would, their cow would get witched and the cow would run dry and she'd have to do something. And supposedly there was a story that she told about somebody's cow that had run dry, and her husband was in the woods squirrel hunting, came across this woman who lived in the area who was a witch, and she had made a cow out of sticks and was out there milking this stick cow, and milk was actually coming out of it. He fired his shotgun, she ran off, he tore the cow apart, and then their cow started giving milk again.
Ah,
So
um,
you hear all kinds of stuff, especially in the southern Appalachians, all kinds of
there's
things.
hexes. I supposedly have two witches in my family on my dad's side, as mother and daughter, and I don't know any more or any less than what I'm going to tell you. But apparently, one of them's husband had made the wife very upset, and the rumor was she turned him into a goat and fed him oats. That's all I. That's all I know.
And your cousin Christina there's
I can
Katina
see
Kim
chat
Shell.
now. It's coming across the bottom of my phone, and I have it on the laptop
And
rolling too.
I
So
can put
that's
some
good.
of the comments I can put up on the screen here on
Oh,
the
okay,
bottom.
yeah.
But
I guess you
Christina's
can that
asking you to
one.
tell about tell you me and her mom and my mom witnessed something crazy at the White House in Rogersville when she plugged a pick or something, when you plug something in, plug something up.
What house, Christina? Oh, hi, cuz. By the way,
Looks like the White House or the White House, WHIT.
Christina, are you talking about the two-story White House? Now that place was absolutely haunted. I lived there for a little bit. I don't know if that's what she's talking about or not. It's delayed, so I have to give her a minute.
And yeah, Layla, yeah, Gaz there, he's on a professional dart team in the UK. Darts are a big deal over there. And he's got Missing Persons and Mysteries emblazoned across his jersey that he wears to his dart tournaments. Yeah, I hear that a lot. Anytime I mention band camp, James Weston, people say this one time at band camp. No, it ain't that kind of band camp.
I saw that movie.
Yeah, I saw that too. Tiger Lily said that to me. And I started trying to explain band camp. She's like, I saw that movie. Hey, there's Orphan Annie. Good to see you with us. Hello to
Good.
everybody watching on Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter, in addition to here at YouTube, streaming to all four places. doing that in the future. And like I said, tomorrow night,
Okay.
Dice Roland, a horror expert, is going to come on, talk horror movies and horror media with us. She reviews books, games, as well as movies. And then Saturday night, then Lizzie Borden, Bree's going to come on and read everybody's cards. So come get a reading. And again, everybody that gets a reading Saturday night, you're going to be entered in a drawing for some more giveaway stuff. And once again, if you've joined the channel, the link there is, should you see it on the screen next to where you like and share. Become a member of the channel. I'm going to have a giveaway. I'm going to give away a signed set of books to somebody in the first 10 people that sign up. I don't think we're up to 10 yet, but if we get more than 10, I'll do 2 giveaways. I'll give away 2 sets of books.
Christina, can you give me a little hint?
She says
it's been many moons ago.
The one near
I remember the house.
The one near Food City when your mom plugged up Mama's pickup. Does that ring a bell?
Plugged up Mama's pick. Plugged up Mama's pick.
Mama's pickup.
When your mom plugged up Mama's pickup. Huh?
You got me.
I'm a little confused.
The waterfall pictures, she says.
Okay.
Hey, Susan Woodcarver, good to see you, hon.
I do remember my mom had one of those. I don't know. Are you sure I was there? I mean, I don't. She might tell me and be like, oh, yeah, of course.
She's wanting to tell what they saw or something. I don't know. There's a story there. We'll come back to it if she puts some more info in here. Now, in there, I think that's the Kingsport. Somewhere there's a haunted jail cell.
They're all scary to me.
Never been in one, so I wouldn't
know. Me neither,
but I'll take your word for it. She said the radio blared. Does that sound any? All of a sudden.
Kind of. I think it was a like a floor model stereo get up thing. It had like double doors maybe on it. I think that might be what she's talking about. I think. And
something about pictures of a waterfall or something. I don't know. It sounds like an intriguing story.
Now, Christina may remember this too. My mama moved to a double wide. I think they were moving in or they were moving out or something. I can't remember exactly. But my mom had been talking about something. I don't know what. And she goes to come out of the bathroom. And it was a fairly good sized bathroom. The mirror on the wall didn't just fall over. It flung over against the wall and crashed.
Wow.
I mean, instead of like falling down on the sink.
Yeah.
It hit the other side on the wall. And she still this day doesn't know why that would have happened.
Hey, cousin Terry there said he wished he could find a charger to fit his old phone. He has real pictures on there, spirits sitting in his living room when all of a sudden felt like ice water pumping through his veins. So it sounds like your whole family has paranormal experiences. That's the way it was, particularly on my mom's side. Every single one of them. My mom came from a big family, 10 kids, 9 boys. She was the only girl. I couldn't get away with anything. She knew every boy trick. But my grandmother had second sight, had abilities. She was a self-proclaimed gypsy witch. Now, I don't know where the gypsy part came in. Like I said, she was born up Cades Cove, that area. But somewhere
she suspected you might have a little something.
Well, she told me I did. I was out of all the grandchildren, and there was a bunch, because out of those 9 brothers my mom had, every single one of them was married at least once, some of them several times. Had one uncle that had been married 7 times to 6 women, and he said that was the only mistake he ever made, was marrying the same one twice. I said, I don't know, Unc. Sounds like he made
not getting married 5 other times, just twice.
Sandra Sancer, good to see you. I recognize you from Facebook. Good to see you. The Orphan Annie says her mom lived in a house in Denver that was haunted. Woke up to the sounds of a little girl in a white nightgown that asked my mom to fix her breakfast, and she was ghostly looking. Now, I've seen some spirits, but I've never had one ask me to fix some breakfast.
Sure, right after I wake up from the pass out I'm about to do right now. Sure. Yeah, I lived in a 2-story house. I don't know if you've ever heard of the road in Rogersville. Do you know where the co-op is in Rogersville?
Sadly, no. I
across
know
from
what
Sioux
a co-op
City.
is, but haven't been to one in ages. But I used to love to go to the co-op with my dad. First thing I do is run over to the seed corn and the beans and those barrels, stick my arms all the way down in them as far as I could get and dig around in them with my hands. But going to the
Um,
co-op was a treat. Fertilizer,
it,
seven dust, gardening stuff, farm stuff.
it was on the left, out on Burum. After you cross the bridge out there, the old dump used to be there on the. Let's see, on the. I think there was a little dump on the right. But anyway, it's moved now. It's on the left before you get to the bridge, but you go on past that, up across the bridge, and just before you get to an area called Tunnel Hill, on the left, off the road a good ways,
Now I've
big
been through
long driveway.
Tunnel Hill. I know where that is.
Okay, it was the farmhouse off the road that sat back across from that, and it had the two stone columns up at the main
Okay.
road.
I know exactly. I've been by there. Didn't stop, but I've been through there. But I remember seeing that house. I remember Tunnel Hill. And
And yeah,
and there
Tunnel Hill was on
used
the
to
right.
be, I think there used to be a little
There was a
dive out there
barn.
called the Tunnel Inn or something like that. There was close to there.
Uh-uh.
Do you remember that? Now this is a long time ago, probably
Uh-uh.
4 year time. Christina says her and her mom and dad lived in that White House after your mom. And one day the
Yeah,
blinds started moving. There was no wind. Later found out that an old woman had died in that living room.
a bonnet sort of
Oh, the blinds,
moving.
like the
Blinds. Oh,
window blinds.
oh. I was up here at my mom's 2 or 3 summers ago. I mean, the air conditioner in the room that I was, she has central heat and air, but they added on, and there was an air conditioner in the window unit, or a window unit in the room I was in, but it wasn't on. And I thought my mom had come back from wherever she'd been at the time, because my hair moved through the corner of my eye. I saw a curtain shift, like somebody swung a door open, and the draft uh, moved the curtain in my hair, but there was absolutely no one here. I come through and hollered, "Hello, hello, hello." I mean, my hair moved and a curtain moved. So I'm like, that's not right. I didn't know
Yeah.
what to think about that.
I've
I
felt
felt
that
so
before. I
crazy because I
felt
thought
just
somebody
a
was here.
shaft of cold air. I've walked through that before where there's just like a column of cold air in places. Uh,
That can be
every
hot
house,
air too.
yeah, every house I've ever lived in was haunted to some degree. But I came to the conclusion a few years ago that it wasn't the houses, it's me that's haunted. It's because I lived places where other people lived, didn't see, hear anything. I move in, there's all kinds of activity. House I
You
lived
have
in,
that
Las
sight.
Vegas, my yeah, I didn't get to finish telling that story, but out of all the grandchildren, I was the only one born with a veil over my
Yep.
face.
Yep.
Now, you'll hear that in the South, but all that is, it's the afterbirth of the amniotic sac was over my head. Now, my granny was a midwife, and she wasn't a midwife at my birth, but she was present, and they probably made her go stand over there. But when I came out, I had the afterbirth over my face, and in her superstitious Appalachian witch mind, that made me a gifted child, a second sight, and all this. And so I was always the one that she would separate out from the rest and teach me all these legends and lores and superstitions and ways to break hexes and ways to do this, that, and the other. She passed away when I was 13, but I wish I'd had another 13 years to spend with her. Now, I was scared to death of her when I was little. She looked like a witch. She little old kind of, she had arthritis. She kind of hands were kind of gnarled. She was bent over, and I was scared to death of her. And she'd always get me in the big old 2-story farmhouse she lived in. Um, Built in the Victorian times, and what had once been a formal dining room, she turned that into her sewing room. Her and Frenchie would cut quilt pieces all summer, and then while watching their stories, they had to watch their soap operas. Boy,
So
God help you if you interrupted their stories.
what they
Uh,
watch, Days of Our Lives, or
as the World Turns and Days of
Young
Our
and the
Lives,
Restless.
and yeah, later. Yeah, I think Young and Restless, that may have been after my granny passed, but my mom watched that one religiously. But they had listened to As the World Turns since it had been on the radio. They were listening to it before it ever came on the TV. But if you had to be quiet when their stories was on, you better go play outside or do something. And during the Watergate hearings, that was on all three channels in the 70s. And Frenchie actually called the local station, I think WBIR, WATE, whatever it was there in Knoxville that they watched their stories on, and complained, "Why have you got this on here? I'm missing my stories. I don't care about this. Get it off there."
Oh,
But
back
it
in
was,
the days of radio, they told some really creepy stuff, like the aliens they've landed, and people
yeah,
absolutely believed it.
War
They
of the
thought
Worlds, Orson Welles, I believe it was Halloween, I want to say 1938. And
they
there's a
didn't know
little
it was a
town
show.
in New Jersey where they looked out and saw the silhouette of their water tower, thought it was aliens, and then shot at it. There was people that tried to off themselves because it caused panic because it was done so
God,
well. And even though there were several warnings throughout this as a radio play, where this is H.G. Wells or the War of the Worlds presented by Orson Welles and the CBS radio players or whoever it was, but people would tune in and they're playing music like it was an actual radio broadcast. And then the announcer would break in, something strange going on in this area of New Jersey. Further reports as they come in, and then they'd play some more music, and then they'd break back in, and then they had reports, and then it was the aliens that landed and they were being invaded, and the guy was on the scene talking about all this death and destruction stuff. It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Christina, are you talking about the brick house that was on the left before you get to the driveway at the
Uh,
two-story house?
Amy,
If you
farmhouse on
are, that
McGill Road. People say you can see Confederate soldier going down the stairs, and a big brick house on the same road is also haunted. Ernest, who is kin to our mama, lived in that brick house. So it
oh,
sounds
good.
like all, as we'd say down south, all of you have seen or heard something, or lived in a
Uh-huh.
haunted house. Or,
Christina likes it too a little bit, I think. The paranormal.
and
My
she
mom,
said
she's interested in it,
she's
I mean,
answering a
not like
yes.
I am, but she'll watch it. Oh, okay. My phone's hiding some of it, so
Yeah, Orphan Annie, I've had that before too. Heard my
it's
name
screwing
echo
up.
through a room when Home Alone, no radio or television was playing. I've heard it out in the woods too. Heard my name being called out of a cave
Yeah,
one time, and I'm like, mm-mm.
I don't know
I don't,
why, but I've
nobody that
always
knows
heard
me in a cave.
don't
So
answer
it
back's what I've heard.
don't answer back and just kept going. Now that was
I have
haunted,
answered back. I thought someone was calling my name. I was working at the
and I've heard of people.
geriatric center here in town,
I've heard people
and
say that it'll often sound like a relative. That I heard a guy that we had a story about a guy that was lost in the woods. Heard his girlfriend call him from across the river, and he jumped into the river and tried to swim over and got swept further down. But it did. He
ooh,
was able to get out and he survived because of where the river let him out at. Eric Sims there, Freeman Sims, Unseen Paranormal Podcast says I've heard my name many times when no one else was home and no TV or anything on. My niece, she's heard her name. She was in the parking lot at the Ingles or something one time and heard somebody calling her name from across the parking lot. And it was early enough in the morning. The store wasn't even open yet. There was nobody there that she knew, and only 2 or 3 cars there.
I'd been working overtime. It was around Christmas time. This has been like 12, 14 years ago, I guess. Well, I'm not going to say my age now, but none of your business. You need to tell them you're none of your business story. But
Yeah,
I was
total
like
that.
26 or 27. At the time, I was 26 or 27. And I was working over. It was down the evening. We'd done put some residents to bed. And there was only a couple of CNAs on that middle hall. North Hall had few, so did South, and they were busy tending to their residents. And I heard somebody say my name. And I roll around and I look behind me and say, yeah, thinking somebody needed some help or something. Nobody answered. I went in and out of the rooms looking for somebody till I found my fellow worker, employee at the time. She was in there praying with somebody, I think, praying with the resident.
Yeah.
And she didn't call my name, but she's the one that told me to not answer back. I'm
Yeah,
like,
and,
well, too
and
late.
things like that. Yeah, like I said, especially coming out of a cave. Like I said, I was out on the Roan Mountain up in Johnson County near Mountain City. And now I've got a friend up there that told me he can take me to a cave where there's spiders as big as house cats.
Nope, I'm out.
No, that's a hard no
Nope,
for me. But he talked
nope.
about being in this cave and seeing where they had caught birds and squirrels and things that were cocooned up in this spider's web. And he said the body of the spider, not including the legs, but the body of the spider was as big as a house cat. Then you had the legs. And I'm like,
Nope.
nope. Tell me where it's
Snakes and
at, and I'll
spiders.
stay away from there. Now,
I'll straighten some roads out.
Road Mountain, Fiddler's Rocks up there. There's a fireball that they've seen up there on Road Mountain. A lot of spooky stuff. I heard my name coming out of a cave. I was up there by myself. Nobody even knew I was there. And I heard out of a cave echoing, Steve, Steve, Steve. I'm like, I ain't going in there. I'll never come back out.
You don't think at the time, oh, where's my phone? I'm gonna get a EVP of this, You think of it afterwards, like, man, I wish I had that on tape.
I don't even think I had a cell phone back then. I had a pager.
Maybe not, but
back in the 90s. But
it'd been hard to get an EVP from that.
yeah.
Is the cave known for anything? Has anything been found there?
Not
Rumors?
that I know of. I went back and tried to find the cave again to show it to my buddy, the one that knows where the spider cave is, and it just wasn't there. Where I remember the cave being, it was just rock. It was like the cave opened up and tried to get me to come into it, and I'm pretty sure it would have closed back, and I would be among the missing. I've had a few close calls like that. But hey, there's Dice Rowland. Join us in the chat. Now, she's going to be with us tomorrow night. She is a master.
I don't know who loves in here.
But
hello. Hello, Terry and Christina. And I forget who else I saw.
I got your kin folks here. Join Dice tomorrow night if you want to talk slasher films, books, anything horror. Sandra Sancer from Facebook says,
I think Edna was in here.
Email you my personal shadow person story. Emails keep coming back. Sandra, it's Steve Stockton 81 at gmail.com. The number 81. If one of you mods would be so kind as to drop my email in the chat there, I would appreciate it. But yeah, there you go. Christina
Steve Stockton 81.
Money and the equipment, she would do a paranormal investigation as long as you had.
Oh, me too.
I've gone out with groups before.
I would go by myself. I'd rather not.
One time, me and another guy, we weren't doing it. There's a video here on this channel called Adventures in a Haunted Cemetery. We weren't doing an investigation.
Hi, Tiger Lily.
We were in high school, and we'd heard that the cheerleaders were going to this cemetery as part of an initiation. So we went and hid in the cemetery. We were going to scare these girls, and there was somebody else in there with us. And we had walked the whole cemetery, Beaver Ridge Cemetery, also known as Copper Ridge Cemetery, but there's two Copper Ridge churches. There's a Copper Ridge Church in South Knoxville, I think, where they saw crosses in the window. That was all over the news. This is Beaver Ridge Church on Copper Ridge Road, totally different place. But an old cemetery there, and there were supposedly tombstones that glowed in there. And I've seen that. I think it's something in the rock that has a phosphorus effect. But there was something in there with us that wasn't us, and it chased the girls off. And then there's two parts to that. But watch, it's on this channel, Adventures in a Haunted Cemetery. True story, good story. She's got plans to do some paranormal oriented videos. Have to have stuff to get in line first. So go over and subscribe to her channel. She has got an amazing channel. Hang on, Dice, here just a second, and I will make you a mod. I thought you already were. But you may be. Let me see here. I've got 4 computers running here and an iPad and my phone. There you go, Dice. You are a moderator. Go ahead and drop links to your channel. But she's going to join us tomorrow night for some horror-related stuff. I'm going to see if she'll give me her views on that, the new Renfield movie with
Nicolas Cage.
Dracula by Nicolas Cage. That I think it's going to be good. And I was talking to Dice earlier about it. I said it's either one of those that it's going to be really, really good or so really, really bad that it's good. Now, Tiger Lily says she has phantom smells, cigarette smoke.
I have had that happen a couple times.
Jasmine is my grandmother. Now, there was a house I lived in southeast Portland, inner southeast, an old Victorian cottage, and I would smell pipe tobacco, and I would smell, no offense to anybody here, but what I call old lady perfume, like white shoulders, something like that, in the middle of the winter when there's no flowers, nothing blooming. And
it'd be the old scent or something basic like lavender or something.
Yeah, this was in the wintertime. Everything was shut up tight. I would also wake up sometimes, smell like something baking. and my daughter would smell it. I thought she got up to it, but she likes to cook like I do. And I'd wake up and smell something baking. I'm like, oh, Jessica must be baking something. I'd go out, the house is dark, empty, and couldn't smell it anymore. And then she'd come out of her room and she said, are you cooking something? I smell fresh baked bread or something, but wasn't there. Same house, I would hear what sounded like somebody dropped a handful of coins on the floor. It had the original fir
Oh,
floor, and it would go
I
rolling
swear,
across the floor, and you hear that one coin that as it was
I swear I've
spinning
had a
down.
coin thrown at me.
I find coins, I find dimes and
I
quarters.
love coins, old coins
Uh,
especially. You know.
I found them when I lived in Oregon. The yard was fenced, gated. Nobody had been in or out. I'd go out and there'd be a quarter laying right in the middle of the sidewalk. Now I've had people tell me that quarters, feathers, things like that. That's how your people that have passed on let you know that they're thinking about you, a dime or a quarter or whatever. But I've found change. I've found coins in the house where I know there wasn't a coin. Mulder doesn't carry any money that I know of, and Benton's neither. They ain't got no pockets. But sometimes I walked in here in the middle of Studio B the other day. There was a quarter laying in the middle of the floor. Where'd it come from? I don't know.
They used to put quarters, or not. I mean, I don't know about quarters per se, but coins in the wall for luck. I believe when they were building homes years ago.
Put a penny in the sidewalk. The house that I grew up, my dad poured the footing for the part of the garage, and he put a penny with the date, that year's date on it in the concrete. And as far as I know, it's still there if the house and everything is still there.
And I think shoes. They would put a pair of
The penny
for some reason.
loafers, yeah, then those
Big
slits on the
shoes in
top,
the wall.
you're supposed to put pennies in the slits for, oh, put shoes in the wall. I never heard that. And I
Yeah,
know a lot of
I think
Catholics,
that's what it is.
if they're trying to sell their house, they'll bury Susan Woodcarver can probably tell me. She wrote that video on here about the Virgin Mary, angels or aliens. But when Catholics are trying to sell a house, from my understanding, some of them anyway, will bury some kind of a saint statue in the yard, and that's supposed to give you good luck in selling your house for a good price.
If you're ever digging around and you dig up some kind of container, probably glass, and you didn't, it's still unbroken, and you see
I,
hair, maybe teeth or something, put it back.
that's a
It's a
witch jar.
witch's
Put
jar.
that. There's a guy here on
Put it back.
YouTube. He's a treasure hunter with a metal detector. He was
Yeah.
out digging around in the woods one time. He's like, "Oh, what's this?" He said, "It's a jar, and it's got
Uh-uh.
something in it." I'm like,
Bad
"No, no,
juju.
put that back, put that back." And he didn't know what it was. He took it home. He opened it up. He pours it out. There's some kind of liquid in here. Yeah, a lot of times there's
It'd
urine,
be
there's
urine.
blood,
Yep.
there's body fluid, body tissue, like I said,
Teeth,
teeth,
hair.
hair, all kinds of stuff. And then people are putting comments on the video, no, no, put that back. And then he made a follow-up video. He said, I'm sorry, I disturbed that. I didn't know what it was. I put what I
Now,
could of it back in the jar and took it and buried it back in the woods.
a
But stay
lot of
away from
times,
the woods jar.
it wasn't necessarily for evil purposes. It was to maintain just, keep the bad away.
There, Vixen Doe. She says it's a St. Joseph statue and you bury it upside down. That'll help you sell your house. Another thing I know people that do is they call it spiking their yard. They will take an old railroad spike or something made out of iron, and you
Iron, yeah.
put a spike in the four corners of your property. And that's not to
Seal
mark a
it.
survey ground or anything. That's to protect you from the wood spirits and the fae, any kind of cryptid or fairy, fae folk, anything like that. They don't like iron. I've got an iron bracelet that I got off of Etsy that I wear when I go out in the woods to keep anything away from me. And I carry
Is that
quartz.
what horseshoes are usually
That's,
made out of?
yeah, they're made out of a type of iron. They're, but
I didn't
yeah,
know if it's steel
horseshoe
or
uh,
people. It's for
upside
luck.
down above your door. That's for luck, and it also keeps the fairies away. And then we were talking about the calling things to you. I was on with Amber's Pear World not too long ago, and she pointed something out that I'd never heard. First of all, knock on wood, don't do that. When you do that, it calls the fae folk, it calls the wood spirits to you. And all of them aren't nice. I don't think any of them are really nice.
I haven't heard that one.
And another thing she said, if you've got a welcome mat, get rid of it. All that is doing is that's out there. Anything wandering by, spirit wise, sees that as an invitation into your house. And
Yeah, the
like
Sabbath Sir Squatch may come up and just knocking
yeah,
on your door when
like
you want
the
dinner.
Black Eyed Kids, like a
Oh,
vampire, like a
no,
demon in a Ouija board, it can't come in unless you invited him. Well, that's an
invite
open
them in.
invitation. Well, somebody in the chat said, I'm going to go turn my welcome mat upside down. She said, no, don't do that. She said, then whatever's below the ground will see it and come up. Now,
One that says "Welcome friends and family," "Welcome family," or something. Maybe.
I'm going to get one that says go away. That way. I don't care.
Beware of the ghosts is what you need. You need one that says "Beware of the ghosts."
The one I've got now says ghoulish greetings. So I don't, it was from Halloween. I've still got my Halloween decorations up. So um, I probably need to get rid of that one too.
The
But
most paranormal thing that's happened to me. I'll probably say this and then think, "Oh my goodness, why didn't I say that?" Right now, I can think of being a kid, being cold in that 2-story house, and I go to turn up an electric blanket. The control for it was in the floor. A hand-like shape is what I saw. And you could almost see like the capillaries and stuff through it. No flesh, no skin. And my electric blanket goes from like 4 to 7. I flip out, about pass out from smother myself because I was afraid to move. I didn't want to breathe because therefore I'd move. And I fell back asleep eventually. But yeah, that scared the bejesus out of me, if you want to say. It
that's
scared me
what I'm
pretty
saying.
good.
As Cathida said, and as a practicing witch, don't touch the jar, bro. You find a witch jar, leave it alone. Now, have you ever seen the bottle
Yep,
trees that
yep.
people put out in their yards? That's more like a
I
Mississippi
saw
thing.
that. What's that about?
That's to catch
Yeah,
witches and spirits in those bottles. Every so often, you cork the bottles and throw them away. I remember one time I was
spirit
watching
tree or spirit bottles.
somebody on TV. It's like the Ghost Brothers, or it wasn't them. It was
Oh,
some
they're
other guy.
funny.
This was some hillbilly guys that go out, and they had caught a ghost in a jar, and their answer was to
Oh,
take it out in the woods and blow it up with a quarter stick of dynamite. I'm like, well, no, you should have buried it or put it in the river or something. All you did when you blew it up, you released whatever you caught out back into the wild. So, hey,
that might
there's
be the
Cisco
ghost
Murdoch.
chasers. Or hey, Cisco.
Journey Through the
But
Gate Paranormal Portal Podcast. Hello, beautiful people. She's got love and bacon and spooks for everybody. Sandra,
bacon. We got
yeah,
enough ghost stuff. I'm
bacon,
out of bacon.
bacon equals love over there on Cisco's channel. Join us Monday night. We had a good time over there last Monday talking about past prophecies for the future and how many of them came true and how many of them didn't.
I saw the second night. I didn't know it was on, but I caught it the second night and I watched
Yeah,
again.
I was on. I don't
There's
know what.
always something
Always
interesting to
something
listen
good.
to
We'll be
when you and
back
her
on
get
there
together.
Monday night. We get into some good stuff over there. Sandra, thank you. I'll check my email, make sure I got it. And hello again to everybody
November.
watching on Facebook,
I,
Twitter, and Twitch. Uh-oh, we lost Cathita. The spooks got her. Hopefully she'll be back here in a minute. Hope she remembered to bring her phone charger. That was one of the things I told her. If you do it from your phone, bring your charger with you. And then let's see, Dice says, typically witch jars are a protection method. Lots of personal things in a jar, urine, hair, etc., just meant to protect said person or property. And I heard Cathita pop back in here. There she
I
is.
hit
And
the
she's
wrong
back.
button. Christina, yeah, I think she lost she lost her dad in November. I
Said
think it's
she's
like
been
more
finding,
towards the end of November.
finding
Yeah.
coins around since he passed.
What kind of coins? Any certain decade or like more of one than the other, like dimes or nickels or any
Dice Roll
certain?
says if there's rusty nails, they'll put it back. If I find any kind of witch jar, I'm putting it back. I know what it is. I ain't
Yeah.
gonna touch it. Once I realize what it is, back in the ground it goes.
Put
Now,
your
I found
garden gloves
something
on
one
so there's no
time.
real contact.
It wasn't. It wasn't a witch jar. It was an old Sprite bottle. Back when they had the heavy glass bottles. Back then, you pick them up and they're like you take them in for a nickel or something, and it was full of mud and stuff. I found it out by the lake, and somebody's partial plate, like part of their dentures, was in this bottle. Now, I'd
Wow.
like to know the story behind that. There's a partial plate. It was broken and about 4 teeth, and the stuff that denture part of it was in a
Mom,
Sprite bottle full of mud. I hope it
come here.
wasn't a witch jar.
Come here.
Let's see.
Come here. Yeah, you. No, the other mom. Come here. You're not on TV.
How many moms you got?
I got one. I'm aggravating her. Oh, she'll tell you I'm silly as I come. Christina was on
Are you
chat
kidding
talking
me?
about
I saw a doormat that said, "Oh shit, not you again." I like that
who
one.
said that? Oh, a doormat. Oh, Christina was talking about the house you lived in by Food City. You plugged in a picture, a waterfall picture.
Cisco says, "What do
No,
you plan
she's like,
for
we
your
already know. I'm asking you, do you remember? Okay, what happened when you plugged it up?
the previous bill collector?" I don't know, Cisco.
Uh-huh.
Donnie Cho, I don't know if I
Yeah.
said hi to you or not. His welcome ass says F off. Not surprised, Donnie.
Was it the one with the double doors, the wooden one? It was?
Nice rolling guess, the same thing I did. The previous bill collector. They plant them in your
Christina?
yard anymore. They
My
have a
mom
tombstone.
remembers that about the radio coming on when she plugged up that picture. She said, yeah, the radio I had cut off come on full blast.
No, Orphan Annie, you're a Tennessee gal too. We need to have you on
Hey,
sometime.
Orphan Annie.
Some of your stories. She's from it's either Sevierville or Pigeon Forge. I can't remember which.
Huh?
East Tennessee in the house. And
Mom.
for those moments, he's from Townsend, I think. The beautiful, the quiet side of the Smokies.
Yeah, but I don't really know any story.
Lily Pond has a wipe your paws mat here. Now, see, what else has paws, though? Bigfoot? Well, he doesn't have paws necessarily. Dogman,
I don't know
werewolves.
more about that.
Things have paws.
Yeah, Woods the kid, me and my sister, we wanted to go to Sensabaugh Tunnel. We're like, Daddy,
Yeah.
take us. Daddy, please.
I've
No,
been
I'm
there.
not going.
It's kind of one of those places you can drive part of the way in, and I think at one time you could drive all the way through it. But I drove up there with a friend, and we
They will
drove in
shoot at you.
part of the way, shined our headlights down there, couldn't see nothing, but we could hear people talking and stuff down in there. I don't know if it was people just further on down the tunnel or if it was some kind of ghosts or spirits or something back in there. And that's another one of those places where they say if you put baby powder or flour on
Yeah.
your car, you'll find handprints on your car. Now, there's
Yeah,
a
clean your
famous,
glass first and then watch and see.
famous railroad crossing in Texas where if you put your car in neutral, the ghosts of some kids that were killed at that crossing in a school bus accident will push your car across the tracks, even though
You
it's
know,
uphill.
Yep, scientifically, they have proven that with the lasers and things and levels. It looks like you're going uphill, but when they pull out the lasers and do all this and that,
It's an
it's
optical illusion,
supposedly you're actually going downhill.
but who knows? It's still
Like
fun to think
what is
about.
that? What is that house where all the weird stuff goes on? Like you can clearly be looking at a board that is tilted upward, but you're walking downhill.
Yeah, like
Mystery
Mystery Hill or Gravity Hill.
Mystery
There
House.
used to be one in Gatlinburg. I think it was called the Mystery Spot. Now, if you've ever been there, like back in the 60s and 70s, right next door to that, they shared a parking lot, was the Dwarf Restaurant. That was my uncle's restaurant. And he was friends with the people over at Mystery Spot or Mystery Hill or whatever it was. I used to go over there every time we'd go and eat dinner with my uncle there. Anybody here old enough to have ever eaten at the Dwarf Restaurant in Gatlinburg, just as you're coming into town? It was on the left-hand side where Mystery Hill was.
I've never heard of that one myself.
Dice
I wish
says,
Mike would come back. He said he's down the road at a friend's house.
Unexplained experiences. Mentioned them a couple of times. Well, Dice, when you come on tomorrow night, in addition to the movie stuff, you can talk paranormal stuff too if you want to. We would enjoy that. But go check out their channel. It is amazing. You will love it.
I was in the Phantom Smells. I was smelling something recently, and I can't remember what it was. But
Dice,
whether Mike smelled it too, or he might remember what it was. He's not here right now.
Dice, your mod, drop links to your channel if you hadn't already, please. And just found out, Dice, she used to live in Colorado. She moved down to New Mexico. I won't tell you the town, but we're close to one another.
Oh, you got a neighbor.
She comes into Farmington for things sometimes. Next time, she's going to come. Her and her dad, I think, I'm going to treat them to lunch. I'm going to meet them for lunch. Her dad's a big UFO enthusiast, and one of the biggest, most bizarre UFO incidents most people have never heard of happened right here in Farmington in 1950. There was over 100 discs flew up and down the I lost the name of the river. It's right here in Farmington, but for over 2 days. And if you Google Farmington UFO incident, there's some interesting stuff. The Animas River, and it's literally just down the hill. I can walk to it from here if I wanted to.
What's the bigger thing there where you are, or is it about the same? Rather the
There's
UFOs
Roswell.
or
Roswell's
the
nearby. Aztec crash site, Dulce Base, where there's supposed to be crashed UFOs and alien bodies and human alien hybrid bodies in the underground military base. Um, Chaco Canyon's here, Choke Cherry Canyon, have skinwalkers and shapeshifters here and out into the Four Corners. I'm right in the edge of the Navajo Nation
that's what I was going to try
reservation.
to think of to say, but I was going to call them
All
flesh
kinds.
walkers. Those we don't speak of.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to.
Yeah, see, I'm Cherokee on my dad's side, and the older people, the elders of the tribe will admonish you. There's stuff you don't talk about. There's stuff you don't mention. There's stuff you don't even think about it because you can draw it to you. You give it power by just thinking about Tulpa.
Acknowledge that.
And so I'm probably going to have skinwalkers and shapeshifters all over my backyard now.
Well, what's more prevalent there, like claims of sightings of the UFOs or the walkers?
It just depends on the time and the area of where you're at. There's a lot of UFO activity here, like I said, Roswell, just not too far. And but it depends on the direction to go over more toward the Four Corners. That's Skinwalker and Shapeshifter territory over there. Of course, the old U.S. Route 666 got a couple of stories on here about that. And I love it all. And there's a series here on YouTube. I think it's Navajo Police or Navajo Cops or something like that. There's an episode called The Howler where they're out in one of these canyons out here, and they've got some beast that people have heard for decades that they're trying to find up in these rocks, and it howls. It's not a wolf. It's not a coyote. And there's some video there with these red eyes. And if you notice that, I was thinking about that earlier. Did
Dogman
paranormal things? Everything has got red eyes. Weird World with that Martin Nunley wrote for me that I narrated on this channel. Just about every creature mentioned in there has red eyes. But if you look, like my dog, my cat, they've got, when their eyes luminesce like that in the dark, they're green or some other color. So
owls, I believe owls have red eyes. I think
owls, Dogman, Sasquatch or Bigfoot, Mothman, famous red eyes. They claim that he didn't even have a head; that it was just had these big red eyes, like in the middle of his chest. It was just kind of like, remember the monster on Looney Tunes that Bugs Bunny was trying to give a haircut to? It was just kind of oddly shaped and orange and had tennis shoes. Mothman kind of looks like that, but with a big wingspan.
Did they also say he had not like a bird head or beak necessarily, but yeah, it's not like a human head. It's more.
Remember any kind of mouth or face or beak or anything. People try to dismiss it and say it was a sandhill crane. I've seen sandhill crane. They're big, but
they're not that big.
And I've seen some big owls, but again, not that big.
In the 70s, there was a couple of couples, or there's 3 or 4 people in the 70s claimed they saw that. Yeah, they were out doing extracurricular activities,
the 60s,
inhaling stuff.
To the old the TNT area where they stored TNT out there during the war, when there was a manufacturing area there, and it was I can't remember the name, Scarberry, I think was the husband and wife. I don't remember if the other 2 were married, but Mothman got after them, chased their car back into Point Pleasant. They went straight to the police station and told what they had seen.
The second time. The first time they saw it, they went back to the area after that
to see it again,
to see if they'd see it again, see if they were crazy.
And
like,
a lot of sightings.
They went to the police station.
A lot of people. There are people that claim they saw it sitting on the Silver Bridge, like the day before it fell or something like that. So, did Mothman cause the bridge to fall, or was Mothman like an omen or a warning that something was going to happen? It depends on who you talk to. Some people see it as one or the other, but who knows?
Like I think it's Now, do you know anything about Florida? It may be in Florida what I'm thinking of. There's something they call the gray man. He would make an appearance before
Seems
imminent
like I've
bad
heard of
weather.
that. Is Bigfoot Anon, Connor Flynn, is he in the chat? He's in Florida. He goes out looking for Bigfoot and stuff. He would probably know that story. Um, now there's some
Maybe
gray
Florida.
ladies. I think that's on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. They see a gray lady standing out on the beach and looking at the ocean when there's about to be a hurricane or a big storm hit. That's
This
another spooky
one,
area, the Outer Banks. There's a place there called Teach's Hole, and it's where they cornered Blackbeard the pirate. They caught him, cut his head off, and hung it up on the ship, threw the body in the water, and the headless body swam around the ship three times before it sank out of sight. And if you go there at night, and I've been there, they claim you can see a glowing headless body swimming around the water. The only thing that happened to me, I just disturbed some kind of bird that was nesting in the rocks, probably a seagull or something. And I don't know who was more scared, me or the bird. Because it's private property. There's $1 million condos there now, and I was down along the shore creeping around in the dark, no flashlight or anything. I wanted to see this ghost, and I scared some bird off its nest. So this big thing just flew up in front of me, whack, and I'm like, ah! And the lights are
yeah.
coming on up here, and I'm like, I got to get out here before the cops show up. But didn't see Blackbeard's ghost, but I went to where it has been seen.
I'm thinking that the gray man, I believe, is in Florida, but I could be wrong. But the last
I've
thing I
heard
heard about it was the
where it
man
was.
or woman that reported seeing it. Pretty much their house was only one of the very few that was left standing. They had saw the gray man or whatever it is. It's like a warning or something. And they
Yeah.
left. When they came back, their house was untouched, perfect shape. So
Yeah,
be like,
well,
hey,
that's my grandmother. A lot of things you could see. An owl could be meaning hidden knowledge. It could also mean death. It depended on what time of day you saw it, what the owl was, whether it hooted or not, where you saw it at. There was so many, and she tried to teach me all that stuff. But again, I was scared of her. I'd repeat it back to her enough that she'd say, "Okay, you understand." She'd give me a Hershey bar, a dollar bill, or something, and don't tell
you
the
just
others.
wasn't retaining it.
No,
You're like, oh,
I
yeah,
just
yeah,
I
yeah.
was scared of her. She had me in this dark room and tell me all this stuff. I just repeat it back till good enough, and then she'd give me. But she saw things that she had no way of seeing and knowing. Um, to get to her house, we had to go up Emory Road there in Carnes, and there was an old farmhouse that sat up on a hill. And back before I was born, I think there were some kids playing ball in the yard. One of the kids chased a ball down into the road and was hit and killed by a car. And I'd heard
Aw.
that as a cautionary tale. Don't play ball and run into the road. Just let it go. We'll buy you another ball. But every time we'd pass that house, I get this real creepy feeling. The hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I'm like just a little kid. Sure enough, one day I was laying in the back seat reading a comic book. This was the 60s, 70s. Nobody cared. You
Oh,
didn't wear
yep.
a seatbelt. And I felt those little prickles on the back of my neck. I looked up. Sure enough, we were passing that farmhouse. I went back to my comic book, didn't say nothing. Well, get to my granny's, it was probably a half-hour trip or something. And
She knew.
we get there. She calls me in the quilting room. She has my mom, dad were carrying stuff in, and she calls me in there, and she was trying to tell me about feeling when you feel stuff, and she says you feel things, and I'm like, well, yeah, I get my feelings hurt. I can feel it if you pinch me. Or she said, no, I mean you feel things like that spot on the highway coming here tonight. And my
Now,
mouth
how
hit
did
the
she
floor.
know? How did
She
she know
knew.
that?
I didn't say a word to my parents. I didn't say a word to her. But when I felt it, I looked up. There it was. She knew that I'd felt that. I heard other stories about her like that. There was a lady that I met much older in life, or she was older in life. But when she was a teenager, her and some other high school girls had walked several miles to go to my grandmother's house to get their fortunes told. She read tea leaves, coffee grounds, would feel your head. That's called phrenology. It's like palmistry, but they read the bumps on your head. It's kind of a lost art now. Animal entrails. She could tell them. They also,
Some
in addition
sticks,
to
I think.
dairy farm, they had they did truck farming, raised tobacco and vegetables and things like that. But she could predict the growing season every fall when they slaughtered hogs, she would pick out one that was hers. And when that one went under the knife and they were rendering it out, taking it apart and rendering lard and meat and whatever, she would poke around in its guts with some kind of little stick she carried. She called it a willow wand. And she could tell what crops were going to be good the next year and what weren't. And according to my uncles, all 9 of them, she was every bit as accurate as the old farmer's almanac, which hung in the kitchen on a string on a nail. They lived and died by that. So if she was that accurate, she's pretty dang good. But anyway, these 3 teenagers are walking to her house to get their fortune told. And Anna, the lady's passed now, God bless her. But she said the other 2 girls were excited about it. They wanted to know if they're going to have boyfriends or marry money and all this. And she was laughing at them. She said, well, I'll go along with it, but I don't believe in all that, but I'm going to go get mine told just to see what she has to say. Well, they get there. They knock on the screen door. My granny comes to the door. And they said, hello. Everybody called her Mama Bessie or Granny Bessie. They said, hello, Mama. We're here to get our fortunes told. And she opens the door and said, come on in. And she points to them one at a time. She said, I'll tell your fortune and I'll tell your fortune, but I won't tell yours because you don't believe in me. And said, if I could have, I would have dug a hole and crawled in it and pulled the dirt in after me. She said, we were miles from her house. We walked 2 or 3 miles. There's no way she could have known what I said. But she didn't read for her, so there you go.
There is a story. I've heard it a few times growing up through the years. About a group of teenagers, I suppose, going to a graveyard after hours. It's dark, and to mark your spot to prove that you've been to a certain grave, that you've been there at nighttime after dark.
Stick a fork in it or something. A stick.
Yes, and
I heard that one
legend or rumor claims that a girl stuck a fork in the grave, and when she went to turn to leave, she died of fright because she stuck the fork through her dress into the hard ground, and she thought something had come up out of the grave and got her.
I heard that same story from my dad growing up, exactly the same. She was trying
my mama claims to have known the girl.
Yeah, now my dad didn't know the person, but he knew the story. Told me that I was little, 5 or 6 years old. But yeah, she went in the graveyard to communicate with whoever was dead, and they told her to stick a fork in the ground. But women back then wore long dresses, stuck it through her dress tail, got up to leave, pulled, and she thought something, as my dad said, thought something reached out and grabbed her by the dress tail.
Done reached up her.
She had a heart attack and died. They found her dead on the grave with her dress tail still forked into the ground.
With the fork, yeah.
And another one I used to hear, there was a woman, now this is back in the days before they embalmed people, and sadly there were people that were buried alive. That's where you get a dead ringer.
The bales. Yeah,
people
the bales.
that had money, they had an apparatus where they could run a string into the coffin. And that's where the midnight shift comes from, or the graveyard shift, rather. They paid somebody to sit in the graveyard, and they would listen for a dead ringer. That was
like a guard on patrol.
Came awake in their coffin. They'd yank on that string. They'd ring a bell, and they knew to go get people to dig them up.
Hey, and it did help. They saved some people.
Degree. But that was for wealthy people. Hey, Dylan Wade Clark is here. The man, the myth, the legend, the paranormal Santa, Mr. Steve Stockton. Yeah, I dressed up as Santa. Christmas Eve.
You fit the bill. Little bit.
I was sitting out on my porch waiting to come in here and go live. I had my hat on. 2 or 3 kids across the street. There's a lady who runs a daycare center. There's Santa, go get in your sleigh. It's Christmas Eve. Oh, don't worry.
Don't be late.
But heard about a lady that had suffered a blood clot. And they thought she was dead. They buried her, but she was just in a coma. And they buried her with a big ornate diamond ring. And somebody went and dug her up to get that ring. Well, her hand was swollen, and they couldn't get it off, so they cut her finger off. Well, when they cut her finger off, the blood started flowing again. The clot loosened, and I guess didn't turn into an embolism or whatever. But she came to and walked home. Came in the door to her house wearing what she'd been buried in and bleeding, covered in blood. But I knew a guy in Knoxville Bob Riffey. He's probably not with us anymore. He was a bottle collector. And
Her oxygen level had to be low or something.
when they were building the Knoxville Coliseum back in the 70s, he was part of the construction crew. They found all kinds of old bottles and stuff. He collected old bottles. My dad collected old bottles. He'd go see Bob and buy bottles off of him. Well, he talked about one time they dug up a coffin and opened it up accidentally. And the woman that was inside of it, you could see where she had clawed at the inside of the coffin.
Oh, yes.
And she had handfuls of her own hair.
There was a man
waking up in your coffin. But the scariest one he ever told, the same area, they dug up a baby coffin.
Oh.
And I think it was made out of some kind of metal, like a pot metal or something. And it had a little glass window in it. And you could actually see the baby in there. Well, while they were trying to get it out and clean it off, they cracked the glass. And he said, you have never smelled such an unearthly smell in your life. And he said, they watched through this, what was left of the glass, this, what appeared to be a perfectly preserved baby, and sealed it in airtight.
Oh, wow.
Made out of lead or something. He said it just started shrinking and crumpled up when the air got to it. It just looked like one of those apple head dolls, was the way he described it. But before they broke the glass in it, you could see the baby just like when it had died.
Airtight sealed.
Creepy stuff out there. Yeah, it was probably lead or sealed with lead anyway. Jim Persinger watching us on Facebook. Howdy, Steve. Thanks for accepting my friend request. Just on the way to bed when I saw you were live. I'll want to watch this tomorrow. Love your channel. Thank you, Jim. We're also on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, streaming live tonight, but you can go back and watch the replay on anytime. I guess you can watch the replay on Facebook. If not, come over to my YouTube channel, 13 Past Midnight.
You have a little gig there on Bandcamp as well.
Yeah, that's where it's just pure narration, pure
yeah.
There's some fiction, there's some true stuff over there, but there's
option
no
to buy
ads,
the
no music. Yeah, you can actually buy those and then put them on any device you have. They're yours to keep. Or you can subscribe over there. You get my entire back catalog, which is only 2 albums right now, but you also get anything I release in the future, plus some subscription-only stuff here. And we have memberships here. And again, all this, it's not about the money. That's to pay the writers. For the stuff that I have up on Bandcamp, I paid those guys out of my pocket because they're good writers, and I believe in what they do. And I paid it so I could tell their stories. So if it just breaks even, if I can pay the writers, I'm happy with that. People like listening to my voice, and says it helps them relax. People with chronic pain, fibromyalgia, PTSD, anxieties, all kinds of things. I get people thanking me all the time. They listen to me to go
people down to help you sleep. Yep.
I've put myself to sleep before when I'm editing audio.
Oh, come on.
Listen to me in the headphones. I've nodded off and then like, whoa, where was I? Got to back up. Thank you, Jim. Have a good night, buddy. I'll see you soon.
Well, I think you said that your dad had said, find something you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life.
He said, find something you love to do, find a way to get paid to do it, and you'll never work a day in your life. And unfortunately, I was, 50 before I figured out I can do this, but here we are. But I don't
like, I'm going to be employed the rest of my life now.
Things happen in their own time and in their own place and the way they're supposed to happen. I was on a show one time.
It's got to be fun getting out there.
And I love going on the shows, radio, TV, podcast, YouTube. I'll go anywhere and talk. But I had a guy ask me one time, he said, so tell me, Steve, when you were in college or a teenager, said, I bet you got a lot of girls with that voice, didn't you? I said, buddy, when I was a teenager in college, I didn't have this voice. This is years of abuse, of smoking and spirits, not the kind that you find in
woohoo and screaming.
The kind you find in a bottle. I don't drink, haven't drank in years. I drink, and it's nothing personal. I just choose not to. Plus, I take blood pressure medicine and not supposed to mix alcohol with that. Plus, a lot of alcohol will cause a gout flare up. I have gout. I could drink a Bud Light tonight. I don't know why I would, but if I did, I would have gout by in the morning. I have to avoid red wine, anything that I like to drink. The only thing that doesn't seem to bother me is Guinness or Elysian Dragon's Tooth Ale. That's a microbrewery out in the Pacific Northwest. But a lot of alcohols, IPAs, anything like that, I can't touch it. I get gout.
Is it the
Same thing.
alcohol in it, or the
It's
barley or oats or something?
there's something in the hops, I think, that causes
Hops.
it. Um, but it's anything that increases uric acid, then you get those uric crystals in your bloodstream. They, of
Yeah.
course, go downward. They settle in the soft tissue in my ankles or my toes, especially my big toe. And a doctor showed me those crystals under like a high-powered microscope, and they look like shards of glass. So
Glass.
they get in the soft tissue, the joint swells up, and then any bit of movement. I mean, literally, you can't stand to wear a sock. You can't stand for the sheet to touch your toe. One time I had it in both ankles at the same time. I had to have a friend drive. This is when I lived in Las Vegas. Had to get a friend drive me to the hospital, go and get a wheelchair, wheel me in. They put me on a morphine drip. That's how bad I was
What?
hurt.
Lord.
I mean,
Is it
I'm
like
talking
somebody sticking you with a pin in your nerve endings, or
years times a
is
million. It's like
okay?
the worst toothache you've ever had, but in your big
Mm.
toe or in your heel or your
I keep
ankle.
I I keep a lot of headaches. I've had
I've
one for
talked
about
to
3 days. It finally
other
eased off
couch
today.
surfers, and they've said, I've thought about just taking a chainsaw and cutting my foot off when I've had
Oh
gout
no.
because it couldn't hurt much worse. At least you could cauterize that. And I
It might
tell you,
feel better, huh?
one time I had it really bad. This was after my parents had passed, and I was outside trying to walk just a little bit because that the movement will help, but it also aggravates it. But if you get still too long, it like tightens up. And I'm out there and I'm literally crying and I'm walking with a cane. And my daughter, she was 14 at the time, she said, "Daddy, is there anything I can do to help you?" And I said, "Yeah, go in there in Mama's Papa and Papa's bedroom, get in the closet. There's an old Remington in there. Bring it out here and right in the back of the head." I can't say the words because of YouTube, but she's
YouTube.
like,
Yeah.
"Daddy," and I said, "That's how bad it hurts, son. I don't think it would hurt any worse." But Mama Pink has got the answer there. Tart cherry juice. If soon as I start feel it coming on, that and naproxen, or also known as Aleve. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure like that
Instead, pain relievers.
but Donnie Cho had come to me with the gout the other day. I turned him on to the tart cherry juice. Has to be tart, has to be organic. I like Nutson's, and it will knock it out. He said that he drank, I don't know, just a couple of glasses of that, and I think he took some Aleve too, and it was gone. But it will knock it out, especially if you catch it when it first starts. Gout attack, usually the worst 3 days are the worst, but it can last. I've had them last a week or two, the lingering effects of it. But as I was saying, the last drink I had, I drank a half a pint of Guinness. It's almost 3 years ago now. I was making traditional Irish stew. It called for a half pint of Guinness. Well, a pint's all you could buy at the store. I put a pint in half a pint in the stew, half a pint in me. Didn't want to waste it. I thought, well, there's kids in Ireland going to bed sober.
Gosh, what a shame.
Over there, I think there is a drinking age. I think it's 18, but when I was in the UK in the 80s, I took a year off between high school and college and hitchhiked and backpacked through the UK and Europe. There was kids in the pub. I know they weren't 18. They might have been 15 or something. And then when I was in the Philippines in the early 2000s, you'd see little kids that couldn't see over the counter come up and put money on the counter, and the
Wow.
clerk would hand them a quart of San Miguel or whatever beer was brewed there on the island. Now, allegedly, I guess they were buying it for mom or dad or grandpa or whoever, but who knows? They might have took it off in the jungle and drank it themselves.
What's the strongest drink you've ever had? Like sake or something? Well, you've been to Hong Kong.
Moonshine.
What?
They don't call
Why
it
did I
tall
even
oil
ask
for
that
nothing.
question? I should have known that.
Moonshine. Now, I've had the Everclear and some of that. It's close, but they ain't nothing like homemade, homebrewed moonshine from a still. It
Now, I
will
know you as I do,
knock
probably,
your eyeballs out.
absolutely love the Southern phrases that only we understand, some of them, like a wampus cat or something crazy.
Woolly booger,
Uh,
yeah, or
yeah.
a
Everybody's
haint.
like, what?
Haint,
You wouldn't know
makes your porch haint blue on the underside. But yeah, I know
the what now?
what haint blue. You ever heard of that? If you go
Haint.
up on
It ain't,
somebody's
it's
porch,
not blue.
the ceiling
Yeah.
will be haint blue. And what that is, if anything comes up on your porch after that welcome mat, it sees the blue, it confuses it, it goes out through your porch roof and back into the sky. That's more of a South Carolina thing. The Gullah Gullah people over there do that, which those are ancestors of slaves. They do a lot of African style, and all voodoo is. That's a blending of some of the African traditions and Catholic traditions. Voodoo, hoodoo, a lot of that's, it's not the same, but it's similar. But yeah, haint blue. But anyway, I interrupted you. What phrase were you going to lay on me there? Appalachian talk.
Oh, I could probably think of 1 or 12, a dozen, or but I absolutely love the Irish proverbs and phrases and such too. They're
May
funny.
the road rise to you. May you be in heaven an hour before the devil knows you're dead. There's a lot of, and there's some I can't say on the air too.
Welcome to our bar. We're not talking about you. There'll be enough of that to do after you leave. Or something about the grass. Don't worry about if you fall over or something. The grass will catch you. I mean, you're drunk. Yeah. There is some silly ones out there.
People with T-shirts on it. If you can read this, put me back on my bar stool. I fell off, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or I've seen that on motorcycles. If you read this, my girlfriend fell off. Go help look for her, or something like that.
Sure.
But trying to think of some more of those old sayings. There was always. Now, did you ever hear the one about the caterpillars, the orange and black caterpillars that you could tell how the winter was going to be depending on how much
the width? Yeah, how cold the winter is going to be.
Yeah.
Now, people call those woolly boogers.
Yeah. Or just a woolly caterpillar. A pack saddle. You ever heard of a pack saddle? That was stuff that got in the corn. Big green worm that looked like it was wearing a little yellow saddle, and it would sting the devil out of you.
With those little furry spikes on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got a hold of one of them the hard way. Ooh, that's pretty. I'm going to put that in my collection. I used to collect insects in jars.
They look like they got 20 hairs, but it'll be 220 out of your hand you have to pick out.
My little kid hand swelled up, looked like Mickey Mouse, with those big fat hands. I'm like, oh. Stay away from the pack saddle.
I used to play in the creek and stuff all the time when I was a kid. I used to travel around in the woods.
Lizards, and we had little turtles in there, creek turtles, and then we had terrapins. Only in my whole time growing up, we lived out in the country, had 26 acres. Only 5 of it was cleared off, and there were 7 springs on that property. 6 of them flowed down the hillsides, and then the 7th one was an artesian spring. Whole time only saw 1 snapping turtle, and my friend and I, we poked it with a stick, and it bit the stick, and we carried that thing back up to my house with it hanging onto that stick. My mom came out. She said, "You get that thing out of here." She said, "If it gets a hold of you, it won't let go
till thunders." Exactly. My mama told me the same thing.
Yeah. And I thought, boy, I'd be hurting if it didn't thunder for a while. I had a snapping turtle on me. But yeah, I used to hear that. It won't let go till it thunders. Dew poisoning. Did you ever hear about dew poisoning? That was one of my grandmothers. If you went out in the summertime when there was still dew on the grass and you were barefoot and you had a cut on your foot, you get dew poisoning. And it was deadly and swift, and there was no cure.
No, that was just to get your shoes on before you went outside, really. I guess.
Yeah. Get out. And dog days. You ever hear about dog days?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Dog days. You get
dog days of summer.
You
get what? Wow.
Rabies or hydrophobia. They call it hydrophobia, fear of water, because rabies, you can't swallow, and that's why your water will send anything with rabies into convulsions. But I've
always heard that wounds are harder to heal.
When my mom was little, rabies was a real thing, and there was always a story she said of a dog somewhere. They had to be careful walking home at night. And one time they'd had some unwanted company, and they were leaving. But my uncle Frank went out and fixed up a bushel basket with a sheet over it and pulled it across the road in front of them. And they thought it was the rabid dog. Came back to the house and spent the night. And
let the shenanigans begin.
Yeah. My grandma said she could have pinched Frank's head off, because whoever it was, she didn't really even like the people, didn't want them there anyway. And then they ended up spending the night because he scared them.
Oh, my goodness. Done it now, Frank.
But he was a prankster. He's just like that. He'd go out of his way to pull something on somebody.
well, there's claims. There's always been claims about running water.
Yeah.
Paranormal ties to running water. And I think, what is it, like the stone tape theory, the limestone
Yeah.
natural
And I
rock.
also heard that ghosts can't cross running water. And the weird thing
Yep.
about that, where I grew up, I talked about those natural springs. They ran into a bigger creek, which ran down into the lake, which is a few hundred yards away. Used to be the Clinch River till TVA dammed it up. But when I'd be playing down there, what my dad called, they called it the bottoms down there. He'd build a little bridge that went down into the bottoms. They had a big garden down there. I'd be playing down there. And once it started getting dark, I'd get the weirdest feeling and I'd run and get across that little bridge. And as soon as I got across that bridge, whatever I felt like was after me wasn't after me no more. But, we found arrowheads down there. We found Civil War relics and stuff. There was, I think people had, and the ditch that I talk about in the thing in the ditch video on this channel, that had been the road through there, the dirt road through there since Revolutionary War time. I believe those soldiers coming through there in the Civil War stopped at those springs to drink water because even when I was a kid, you could drink it. It was fresh, it was pure. But since then, they built houses on the hill up above there and farther up. And I'd say there's probably sewage in that groundwater now. I wouldn't drink it. But I'd say those soldiers probably stopped there to camp or get a drink of water at least and got ambushed. But
Not far from my mom's where I'm at right now. Like I said, I didn't think I was going to end up bringing my dogs here, but I come up here because a lot more peaceful and quiet instead of like Mulder and Bittens there,
yeah.
That cat cracked me up that night, knocking everything over. But
Hey, I was on with Lon Strickler, and Bittens was over here. I was going through some boxes. I've got a table set up over here.
I left for 2 days,
and it was almost empty. But she either jumped in or jumped out of it. Box and all went off, and all you heard was this big crash.
bang bang clink. And Steve's like, "That's my cat."
Lost her mind. But then
That's what was so funny. That's a cat.
Then I was all embarrassed and everything. And then in a few minutes, Lon is sitting there and his cat jumps up, it's like crawling across his shoulders and stuff. So,
Me and somebody in chat was laughing about it.
Yeah. Hey, Mama Pink, good to see you. I don't know if I said hi tonight or not. And also, I saw Sandra Pink Paranormal in here earlier, I believe.
I'm looking at Irish quotes. Sometimes I laugh so hard the tears run down my leg. I've never heard that before.
No, that's a good one. But no, when we were headed that direction, you were going to say something hillbilly. We were talking about moonshine.
Yep. I was getting back to that because I did remember. Not far from here, there's rumors and tales. Something I don't know what else. Something about horses, soldiers, on a road or area called Bunker Hill. Mm-hmm. Well, I got the bright idea to go spook hunting one early a.m. there. Well, me and Mike went, and he's about to nod off, standing up, and I'm tired too. But all of a sudden, I'm like, "Do you hear that?" He's like, "Yeah, shh, be quiet." And he's listening. I'm listening. We hear what is unmistakably a horse clip clopping trotting up that we cannot see. We do not see a horse, but we clearly hear a horse coming up and stopped. I'm assuming there was a creek there, I believe. I assume to drink water. A ghost horse drinking water, maybe, because it just come up and quit. It was getting closer and closer. And he's like, "Oh, that was," I don't know what he made up, but "Oh, that was this and that and the other." I'm like, "Oh, come on, you know exactly what that was." That was a horse you didn't see. So what it was.
Yeah. Well, now in that same area where I grew up, not too far up the road along Beaver Creek. Beaver Creek's one of those weird places. All kinds of stuff happens along the banks of Beaver Creek. It runs, I think, way up into Virginia or somewhere. But there in Solway, in the community where I grew up, there was a train depot there at one time. And a couple of guys had robbed, I think it might have been the stagecoach, but I believe it was the train. They had robbed the train. They were on horseback. The law got after them. They ran toward Beaver Creek, and there's a cave up there. And those guys hid out in there, and they scratched their names and the dates in the wall. It's still there. I can take you right to it. But they did catch them, and they killed them. They didn't bother taking them to jail or anything. They just, the posse that was after them, just shot them and left them or took them. But anyway, one night my dad said that he was out there doing something in the garage. It was night, and back then ours was about the only house on that road. We were way out in the country, a couple of miles to the nearest neighbor. But he heard hoofbeats in that ditch that I was talking about, and he walked up there where he could look and see. He said, "I heard them, but there wasn't no horses in there. I mean, it was growed up in brush and stuff." But he thinks it was those guys because they chased through that area to where they took them out at, and up there where that farm's at. Used to be Eddie Dawson's farm. He was the attorney general for the county or for whatever it is there. He's passed on now. In fact, they put his widow in jail for his murder, I think, but or something like that. She got put in jail. I better retract that story. That's what I heard. Can't verify it. But, she did go to jail. Yeah. But anyway, it was on his property. So you can go down there, but it's trespassing. But I've heard that if you go down there, especially on a night when it's stormy, you can hear the hoofbeats past that or come out of that cave or around that cave where those guys hid and scratched their initials in the wall.
On the main street here, before you cut down on Bunker Hill, there's people that claim that they can hear I don't know what you call a group of horses. It may be plain as the nose on my face. I just can't think of it. But they've heard several horses.
What do you call it?
Going down the road. Yeah, I heard of horses.
Or a gaggle of geese or a murder of crows. I don't know what you call a bunch of horses. A herd? No, that could be cattle too. A herd of horses? I don't know.
There's what is ganders? That's geese too, I think. Gander. Something horses. I don't know. I don't know what you call a group of horses. But anyway, you could hear them up and down the road going by, and people claim they've seen soldiers out there. Now, the man that was buried standing up, you had also visited, or you stayed at, the Martha Washington Inn.
Yeah, that's in Abingdon, Virginia.
So, but you're about 95% sure that the man buried standing up was in Tennessee.
A group of horses.
Group of horses. Well,
it's
hey, I said.
It's called a team, a Harris, a rag if they're colts, studs if they're used for breeding, or a string of horses.
Never heard of that. Well, I've heard of stud, but I've never heard of any of that.
Team of horses, but that's what pulls a wagon, or somebody said a coach and four, a clump of horses, a bunch of horses. There you go, a stampede. That's when they
yeah.
But now, what was your moonshine memory there?
Oh, mine? Did I say moonshine?
Yeah, I was talking about moonshine, and you said there was a hillbilly something you were going to say that I'd probably heard. Now, my axiom that I always heard growing up: if you take a worm and you put it in a glass of water, it lives. If you put it in a glass of moonshine, it dies. Now, the lesson that you're supposed to learn from this is: if you drink moonshine, you'll never get worms.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Speaking of worms, I love going fishing.
You're headed somewhere with the moonshine, but I don't remember what it was. There's
the moonshine.
But I
remember you said something about moonshine.
They called it Pop Skull moonshine, and that's the real deal, made in a still. That didn't mean for that to rhyme. But
I was saying, I should have known it. I should have known it'd probably been moonshine. I remember that's what I was getting at. I think, I shouldn't have even asked that.
That stuff, the pure grain alcohol, it's close, but there's just a little something extra in moonshine, and I think it's the person that makes it. Like now, I've had guitars and things. One guitar is just like another, but they're not. Sometimes there's certain guitars that have a magic feel to them. It's either something in the wood that the wood remembers. I think they're wood spirits, or the luthier that made that guitar, that put it together, he imbued part of himself into that, or maybe both. I think that happens sometimes with moonshine or cooking. My grandma's cooking. I can cook her stuff. I can follow her recipes to a T, and it don't ever taste like what she did. Same with my mother's cooking, but it was that grandmother or mother's love that goes into that dish, that goes into that cornbread or whatever, that makes it taste good, makes it taste better than when I cook it.
How was your dinner? I was
Same with
wanting some fried green tomatoes so bad the other day.
lunch food. Those lunch ladies, they put their blood, sweat, and tears into that pizza that we used to have on Fridays. I know it. I got the recipe from one of the lunch ladies where I went to elementary school. She was much older. I was too at the time. Of course, it was made to feed 200 kids. I halved it and halved it and halved it and halved it and finally got it down to a manageable level where I could make one bacon sheet full of it. Didn't taste a thing like what I remembered. But that elementary school pizza was
I
magic.
remember grown-ups giving school bus kids, they would save their pizza from lunch or buy extra and bring it home from the school bus, and their neighbors would give them $1 for it or something,
Yeah. Oh,
because
I
they
made
missed the
friends with
pizza so
the lunch
much.
lady, the same one that I got the recipe from after she'd retired. She went to my brother's church. My brother was a Pentecostal preacher, and I'd always, talk to her at church and say, hey, could you send me? She had this little brat of a son named Richard, and I would play with Richard. He was a lot smaller than me, but I made friends with. That's salting the calf to get the cow. I made friends with her little boy, and then it's like, Marcy, would you save me an extra piece of pizza? So she'd always put one back for me, and I'd get seconds. Hey, Erica Ashley's here, and she says, facts. Heart put into things does in fact make it taste as such. Guitars as well, surely many instruments and in other ways. But I believe that
They'll
about
sound sweeter.
I said my grandma, my mom, whatever they cooked, I could never make it taste like that. My brother tried to. I can get close, but it does not taste the same. And it's the grandmother's love that went in that.
Oh yeah, there's nothing like
But
mama's
yeah,
cooking, mama's cooking. There's
Nor Harris,
just
Ridge
the
Running
best.
Hillbillies, Ridge Runners. You talk now. That's a lot of people don't know this, but some of those original NASCAR drivers, Junior
Oh yeah, they
Johnson,
were
one
liquor
of them, they
runners.
were liquor runners. They ran
They
bootleg,
modified their cars. Yep.
whiskey and moonshine, totally different things. Bootleg is just untaxed. My uncle
They
Frank, that
finally
I was
made it
telling you
legal.
about, he was a bootlegger during the war. Oak Ridge, a
NASCAR.
secret city behind the fence at that time. It didn't exist on any map or anything. Well, he would go, Anderson County was dry. He would go into Knox County and get liquor, drive it out there to Oak Ridge. He had guards that he paid off at the different gates. They'd let him through. He'd deliver liquor to the officers club. Bootleg
See,
whiskey.
their cars, when they modify them, and
That was to outrun the law.
it was outrunning the police. Yep. So
That old, you
they
ever heard
probably
that
had to get ahead of it somehow.
You ever heard that Steve Earle song, Copperhead Road?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a real place. It's in Johnson County. I've been on it, and you don't want to go up there. You certainly want to get caught up. Don't want to get caught up there after dark. People
Going
kept
to town
stealing.
twice a year to buy your
People kept
supplies.
stealing the sign, but that was a real place. That's a real story. That talks about that car, Johnson County Sheriff's, painted on the side. It was an old sheriff's car. Shot a coat of primer, and he looked inside. It was an old cop car. Now a lot of those cop cars, like the newer ones, they have those interceptor engines in them and stuff that'll outrun anything anyway. They'd soup up those old cop cars and run bootleg liquor or moonshine in them. Thunder
People
Road,
were
that's
rooting for them, and they
Thunder
got a
Road,
fan
that's
base.
based on a true story, happened on Kingston Pike. I was just outside of Knoxville. But yeah, Junior Johnson, he was a bootlegger or a whiskey runner, ridge runner, and then said, "Hey, I can do this here. I can do it on an oval track easy." A lot of those original NASCAR guys were bootleggers and whiskey runners.
They were small town celebrities when word got out. They had a little fan base, and
Well, thank
they
you, Eric.
finally
You
made
can't really see
NASCAR.
it, but it's a dragon I've got up there behind me. I had
Your
snowflakes
background, I was going to ask about that.
that down, and I wanted
The
to put something
orange.
different. I've got just a plain background. I've got the orange walls here, but there's a couple of flecks of paint missing. I want to paint them over before I just use the bare wall. But yeah, you can't really see it. I don't want to mess with that camera, though. I'll get it
I
off.
thought it was like a spider web or something. I guess that's a
Yeah,
dragon's wings.
dragon,
Okay.
its wings, and you can see its mouth this way. There's the mouth. It's got its tongue right out there.
Good shade of purple.
I mean, it's a big thing. It stretches from this doorway to that doorway where the bathroom is. So it's a lot wider than I can stretch my arms. And
What
it's
is it?
tall
A tapestry?
tapestry. Yeah, it goes all the way to the
Okay.
ceiling.
Okay.
But anyway, thanks for that. Glad somebody noticed. Yeah, Thunder Road, that was based on a true story. It was a song and a movie with Robert Mitchum. That happened in East Tennessee, what's now Kingston Pike, but it was out toward Farragut, I think, out in that area out there, Kingston Pike to Dixie Lee Junction. You East Tennessee folks will know where I'm talking about.
You were talking about UFOs earlier. I don't know too much about it. All I know is some book somewhere. I don't know by who or when, but sometime way back in the day, my mama claimed to have seen a UFO, and somebody recorded her story, a reporter or somebody, I guess. I have to ask my aunts or maybe my dad more about that.
No doubt. I'd like to read her account.
But I believe somebody in my family told me that her account is recorded. It's in a book. There was a book made about of stories or something, and her story's in it. But
Cool.
yeah, I'd like to read it too because that's
Have
all I
you
know.
ever read the Foxfire books? I think it's Foxfire 2 or 3 that has all the witch and haint and booger tales in it.
No, but I'm still waiting on that book by Steve Stockton.
Yeah, I'm going to email those out. Don't forget, those of you that join the channel, there's going to be a drawing for the first 10 subscribers, or first 10 members, rather. There'll be a drawing for a signed set of my books. And if I get more than 10, I'll give away another set. For each 10, I'll give away a set of books.
And you've got books that your experiences in the woods, and you've got several books.
I've got 5, and a couple that I co-wrote. One was Cisco. We're all children of the wilderness of the afterlife, a guided tour through a haunted life. Boy, that's a mouthful. It took me about 2 years to say that.
I read that the other day on the live stream.
But I've got Strange Things in the Woods. That was my first one. That was stories that I collected from friends and family and family friends and people. And
that's
I put
a good
in
one.
that. And that was in 2 volumes. It was Strange Things in the Woods, More Strange Things in the Woods. And then when I went with the traditional publisher, they combined it into one, made one
them all in, yeah.
And then when I'd go on the radio or TV or whatever and talk about those books, the host, or if it was call-in show, people would want to say, well, these are other people's stories. Have you had any experiences? And I'd trot out some story or another. And I got to thinking about that. I bet I've got enough to make a book. And I did. And I've got enough to do a second volume of that. But My Strange World is my personal paranormal experiences. And then the most recent ones, National Park Mysteries and Disappearances, volumes 1, 2, and 3. Volume 1 is the Great Smokies. Volume 2 is just a little bit about California, Joshua Tree, Yosemite, and I don't remember if I put
Mount Shasta.
I think it's in there too. And then Volume 3 was Oregon, Idaho, and Washington State. More volumes of that.
Now your other channel, Missing Persons Mysteries. You do some paranormal stuff on there too, but it's a lot
of the mysteries side of the name.
Mysterious disappearance.
We delve into some stuff, but it'll always first and foremost be about missing people and trying to help them be found or alive or not, and get the family some closure if they can't bring them back alive.
Well, it's kind of like there's supposed to be an "and" in there too, I guess, because on the
technically it's Missing Persons and Mysteries, but I think in YouTube
it's Facebook like that
run together as Missing Person Mysteries. But search for that; it'll get you there. Sasha Bell just dropped a link. Cathida, we're running up on 2 hours. Mr. Mulder needs to run out. I need to take a bathroom break. You want to take 5 and then come back? Can you stay longer?
Sure.
With us?
Before he does his dance and confuses your carpet or flooring with the front yard.
Yeah.
I need to go check on mine too. They're awful quiet.
I'll just go ahead and take you out of the stream. I'll see you when you get back. Thank you. We'll be back after this 5-minute break. While I'm gone, I'm going to play a song that Cisco Murdoch, who's in the chat there, Journey Through the Gates, Paranormal Portal podcast, her husband Mario, who is a member of the Big Fat Pet Clams. Did I get that right, Cisco? Big Fat Pet Clams from Outer Space. Rock band there in New Jersey has one of the distinction of being only one of 2 bands that played at the infamous CBGB Club, CBGB's, in all decades that it was open. And the other band was Blondie, and the other one is Big Fat Pet Clams from Outer Space. Now, this isn't the whole band. This is just Mario, but he wrote a couple songs just for me. This one's called Groove Walker. I'm going to leave you with this and be back in 5 while I let Mulder go do his thing. And we're back. That's Groove Walker you were hearing there from Cisco Murdoch's husband, Mario, a member of the Big Fat Pet Clams from Outer Space. Also played with Bruce Springsteen before Bruce was the boss when he was just a kid in Atlantic City. Got the Scooby-Doo ghost there. How's everybody doing tonight? We're waiting on Cathida to get back. She had let her dogs out too and had to run to little boy's room. Let me go ahead and just put the camera back on. There we are. Oh, that's scary too. Boy, I'm a mess. Matching? What's matching? I don't know. The older you get, the less you care. At least I've got it on. I don't have it on inside out or anything or backwards. Who else we got? Still got 20 of you hanging out with us, watching here. We're a little over 2 hours. We'll probably wrap it up here soon. Ted Branston's apparently entertaining the chat there with his comedy stylings. He'll be here all week, folks. Don't forget to tip your waitress. But I hope everybody's enjoying the show. Just basically a couple old hillbillies swapping tails, as they say. But Cathida said she had some more stuff coming up. But she appreciates everybody making her feel welcome here. She's kind of scared, as they say down south. She's scared to come in here and talk, but we're all friends and family here. We don't give a kitty. So good to see everybody here again. Thank you for joining us. Join the channel, become a member. The first 10, I'm going to have a drawing for a signed set of my books. Had several people join tonight. Thank you for that. You get a badge beside your name. See, Vixen Doe's got one. It probably looks different in the chat on there, but here on the screen, it looks like a little S on its side. That stands for Stocktonite. That's what my fans started calling themselves. I didn't come up with that. Could have been worse. Could have called ourselves the Tumblebugs or something. I don't know. But anyway. But thanks for everybody that's become a member of the channel. There will be some members-only perks, members-only chats, members-only posts. In fact, you all that have become members, go ahead and look at the community post. There's a secret message there waiting on you already. And some other good stuff there. And again, all that goes to help defray the cost of paying the writers for the channel and keeping StreamYard up and going. Tomorrow night, Dice Roland will be here with talking about horror and horror media, books, movies, a little bit of everything, games. And sounds like she's got some paranormal stuff to tell too. And she's also a practicing witch. I didn't know about that. Yeah, Vixen, I don't know if you can see what's on my screen here or not, but it looks like a stylized S there. Now on the YouTube chat that I've got running over here on this laptop, I can see that it is indeed a black star on a blue background. And the longer you stay a member, it changes colors. Okay, looks like Cathida's back now. Let me bring her back in here. Let her finish taking a drink there. There you go. You drinking moonshine, Cathida? Uh-oh. Maybe
No,
I am.
sir.
I hit the wrong button. I got Path Water. DrinkPath.com, made in the USA, veteran-owned and operated. A portion of their proceeds goes to veterans, comes in limited edition aluminum bottles that are refillable, reusable, recycle, reduce, reuse. And it helps, goes to a good cause. And this is unsolicited endorsement. But if you guys want to endorse me, Pathwater, drinkpath.com. If you're listening to me, send me a couple cases of this. I'll talk about it every show I'm on.
I have purified water. Does yours have different kinds of containers that, like they come out different kinds every so often?
Like a winter camo, but they've done like a patriotic stuff, and every one is limited edition. But it is still water, purified water with electrolytes added for taste, 25 ounces. And like I said, it stays cold a long time in that aluminum bottle. I like that. Okay. Now then.
When's the last time your ghost has been active, Steve? Your resident ghost there.
I haven't seen anything since Sandy and Robbie moved to Albuquerque. So maybe it's something following them around.
October?
But I know the one lady is the one that passed away here in the bathroom in Studio B. There's a restaurant right over here to my left, and that's where she passed away. But since I rebuked her real good that morning when I heard her say, God gave me breast cancer while I was praying, and I just told, no, God didn't do that. God comes to exhort, edify, comfort. Whatever, Satan's the one that comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I think she was mad at God, and when she swallowed a bottle of whatever she swallowed and perished in the bathroom floor, and she was afraid to go into the light because she didn't know what was on the other side. But I think Cisco and somebody else may have helped cross her over. Haven't heard anything else out of her. Never actually saw the hem of what looked like a bathrobe coming into the bedroom one time when they were still here. Sandy was still here. I think Robbie was already in Albuquerque. And I didn't come in here because that was still their room. But I went down the hallway into the kitchen. Sandy's standing at the sink. And I knew she didn't pass me in the hallway. I said, were you just in the bedroom? And Sandy had on like a tracksuit or something. And she said, no, I haven't been out of the kitchen. I'm feeding the cats. And whatever it was, I saw just the hem of looked like a white bathrobe go around the corner into the room. And then the little boy that's here, I saw just the top of his head one night. Sandy had a face-to-face with him when she was sleeping in here one night. He was bending over, peering at her, and was just like right in her face. And then he disappeared when she startled. But one night we were sitting out on the back
scary,
patio.
but I find it fascinating.
She and I were the only ones here, and the lights kept going on and off in the bathrooms. And I would come in and find the switch physically turned on. I'd turn them off, they'd come back on. Well, one night we were sitting out there, it's warm weather, had our laptops out there on the patio, and I saw just the top of the little boy's head, the kitchen door. The curtains come down on the window, but there's about a foot or so left where there's no curtain, just window. And I saw just the top of a little black-haired boy, looked like he had a bowl haircut, little round head, pass in front of the window there. And then I heard another voice in the hallway when I was setting up. They've got 3 studios here. I've got my live studio in there by the fireplace, which this has become my live studio now. But I was doing live streaming from out there in front of the fireplace for a while, and I was setting up a video camera and a switcher, and I've got a 72-inch monitor and stuff in there. When I go live from in there now, it's something special. I went live in there on Halloween. But I was setting all that stuff up, fiddling around with it, and I heard a younger female coming down the hallway voice say, hello, but it wasn't like a hello, how you doing? It's like, hello, what's all this crap? And it's just like, hello. And I whipped around, and there's nobody there. Like I said, me and Sandy were the only ones here. I knew she was outside. I went outside. I opened the door. She's tending to her wisteria or whatever is growing out there. I'm like, did you just come inside and say hello and go back out? I knew she hadn't because I hadn't heard the door. And she said, nope, I've been out here for like an hour trimming these flowers and stuff. I don't know who that was or what I heard that time, but I only heard that once.
The place I moved into before, I heard a British lady. I mean, a British lady? I mean, she said, hello. Well, hello there. I'm like, who's outside my window? It's fairly warm, spring or summer. I can't remember. But there was not a soul in sight. I'm like, okay. I just heard a British lady. And I swear something touched my shoulder one day. I swear I felt like it, like 2 or 3 cold fingers. And it happened to somebody else too, the same thing.
Yeah.
In the kitchen both times. So
I've felt ghostly fingers before. Most memorably, I was in the Tennessee Theater. Or no, it's across the street in the Bijou Theater downtown Knoxville. I was attending a dinner at the Bistro at the Bijou, which is connected to the theater. That theater is over 100 years old. And I went out into the lobby because where our party was, I was closer to the lobby door. I would have to wade through a bunch of people I didn't know to get to the bathroom. So I thought, well, there's got to be a bathroom in the theater. I went out in the lobby, and it was dark out there. So I didn't see the bathroom that was just right there. So I thought, well, there's one up on the mezzanine level. If I go up there, I use that one. I figured I could find it in the dark. Well, I started up the staircase, and I felt somebody pass me on the staircase, and what felt like a woman's hand, fingers just brushed down my arm. And I thought, it's probably not a good idea to go up here and go to the bathroom. So I went outside and peed behind the dumpster.
Well, safer there, huh?
And then when
They
I came
say
back
like
in, the other party was leaving, so I did go to the bathroom and wash my hands.
like there's a feeling of like going through cobwebs. It can be
Yeah,
like paranormal energy.
yeah, I've felt that before too. That's a strange feeling. Talked about shafts of light or shafts of cold air, shafts of hot air. But one time, house I lived in Las Vegas, I was standing in the hallway and I felt something come down the hallway and it passed through me and it was ice cold. I mean, I was like
They
instantly
say
just
it's like a
froze,
cold you've never
and
felt.
then it was gone. Yeah. And that house was very active. I talk about it. There's a video in here called "A Haunting in Las Vegas," and that's the most active house I've ever lived in by far.
In Las Vegas.
Yeah, the most active house ever that I've ever lived in. But it is in Las Vegas. It was built back in the 30s in an area which back then it would have been out in the middle of the desert. The Las Vegas Strip didn't come into play until the 40s when Bugsy Siegel built the Flamingo. Everything was downtown on Fremont Street, and I lived a couple of miles from there. So it was supposedly a mob safe house in the 70s. There was some kind of cult that lived there. I don't know what all kind of. I was out getting my mail one day, and I was just standing there at the box leafing through it because it was gated and stuff. And I'm standing out there at the mailbox leafing through my mail. Felt somebody staring at me. Turned around. There's this old man there wearing traditional Jewish garb. I guess I don't know, Orthodox or Hasidic, but he had the hat and the long black coat and everything. It was a predominantly Jewish neighborhood. And I looked at him and I said, "Can I help you?" And he's like, "Oh, pardon me for staring." He's old. He's probably like in his 70s or something. He said, "But I just wondered what kind of person could live in that house." And I'm like, "Sit down. There's a wall there, the rock wall." I said, "Sit down. Tell me some more." And
Yeah,
he
you
started.
got all day to hear that.
Yeah, he had lived on the street since the 50s, and he knew the history of that house and that area. And he said it had indeed been a mob safe house. And he said that from what he had heard, there were people that went in there that didn't come back out. And there was a secret room. If you went downstairs, there was a bookcase in the wall. You pushed on it, it opened out into just a square room about 10, 12 feet square, single bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling. And I found manufacturer like brochures and stuff of Browning machine guns or some kind of guns that are illegal now, but they weren't. This was stuff from the 40s or 50s. This literature, and there was a drain in the floor. So I think that's where they cut up the bodies. And if you've ever seen Casino, Joe Pesci's character said, "There's a lot of holes in the desert." And there's a lot of problems in those holes. So I think that, yeah, there was people that got dismembered there and carried out into the desert. I had a photography studio there and a couple girls that worked for me as models. They were sisters. And they were into the paranormal stuff. They wanted to hold a seance there one night. And I'll talk about it in this video, the long story. But they contacted some guy in that room and he didn't want to talk, didn't want to give his name, said he wasn't no snitch, but apparently he met his demise in that room. But I used to hear what sounded like a party going on downstairs. My roommate heard that. And sometimes when I'd have a photo shoot, I'd bring in a DJ, I'd have it catered. It was a party. And then we'd take, I did fashion photography, product, print photography, web page, a lot of designer wear and stuff like that, shoes, leather jackets, whatever anybody wanted me to think. Well, she got up one morning and heard what she thought was a party going on downstairs. And she was a model too. And she was going to come down and see what I had going on. She gets to the first floor landing. There's French doors that went out onto the landscaped upper lawn. She turns the landing, goes downstairs, and she sees it's dark. And about the time she gets 2 or 3 steps down toward the basement, it goes silent. Well, she goes all the way down there and starts flipping on the lights. And I've got big studio lights down there. Nobody down there, nothing down there. She calls me on my cell phone. Luckily, I had service, but I'd been out at Red Rock Canyon since before daylight, setting up for some shoots for biker boots in the desert out there. And she said, were you just downstairs with a bunch of people? And I'm like, no. And she said, well, I heard what sounded like a party down there, people chattering. And she said, did it sound like they started singing or chanting? But then when I went down there, it was dark and nobody was down there. I thought maybe you left in a hurry. I'm like, sweetheart, I've been out here since like 6 a.m. before the sun came up getting this shit set up. And she's like, is it all right if I come out there and join you? She said, I don't want to be here right now. But that was the first thing she'd ever experienced there. And she'd lived there for a couple of years before I moved in, but I heard stuff all the time. And I think she was just in denial. But I would hear, it always caught me in the bathtub. The one bathroom upstairs had a big Roman soaking tub in it. I mean, 2 or 3 people would have fit in it, but it was a bathtub, not a hot tub or anything. It was jetted. But anytime I ever got in there and tried to soak, it would sound, and I'd be the only one there. Her mother lived in California, up Northern California. She would go away for the weekend a lot of times. I'd be the only one there besides her little dog. And it would sound like something. The only way I can describe it is a trash can full of scrap metal dragging it up and down the hardwood floor in the hallway. Scrape, clank, clunk, crank. And I'd get up, dry off, put on my robe. Nobody home, nothing out there. Don't know what that was all about. Other weird experiences there. And again, I talk about it in A Haunting in Las Vegas here on this channel. Look for that video.
It may be a habit, for me to hear ambient background noise like TV or something. But it seems like there's at least 2 times a month, twice a month, maybe 3 times. I think, to myself, oh, the TV's playing, blah, 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 blah. And I'm trying to listen to it, and I can't make out what it's saying. And I'll go to look at the TV. It's not even playing. Or it'll say on there, are you still watching? And it's paused. And I'm like, I heard a TV.
My mom went back to bed. I was supposed to be back in the bed, but I was up. And I heard a radio or a TV. I could hear people talking. There was nothing. I went to every room in that house. Yeah. There was no radio. There was nothing on. And I said, we lived isolated. We were out in the country. My mom would hear somebody outside the house sometimes, like she was standing at the kitchen one time doing the dishes, and right behind the sink was a window that looked out, and she saw like a shadow of somebody go by and heard a man clear his throat. And she took a pew-pew and went out there to see who's in the yard. Nobody
took a what now?
Pew-pew.
Okay.
There's certain words you can't say here on YouTube.
Oh, I got you.
You pointed at somebody. He goes, pew, pew, or bang, bang. Hey, there's Connor Flynn, Bigfoot Anon is here. He lives in Florida. Maybe he knows that legend you're talking about. Connor, if you're still watching, listening there on Facebook or here on YouTube, have you ever heard of a gray man sighting in Florida? Cathida was talking about that earlier. We're talking legends and folklore of the South. Before
a big storm hits.
So now I know there's the Gray Lady of Hatteras. It may kind of be the same type of entity, but that's a different area. That's Outer Banks of North Carolina.
I think this is the Gray Man.
While we were on the break there, you said you had some other stuff you're going to tell us. What'd you remember or come up with?
Oh, I remember being alone one night, except for my daughter being in the house. Her dad was at work, and it sounded like someone stacking firewood in the downstairs in the basement. And it was very loud. Let me take my man out just a second. And I was scared. I got up, tiptoed across the wood floor because I didn't want to give away my location, or, someone was awake to alert them, in case they wanted to come upstairs on me and do whatever. Well, I go get a knife, the biggest one I could find in the dark, and the phone, the cordless phone. I don't think I had a cell phone at the time. I don't remember why, but I come back in the bed, curl up, and I'm just waiting for somebody to come upstairs, barrel through that door, ambush me. I was ready to call the police on somebody downstairs because they were slinging stuff so hard, so loud. Then it stopped. I never heard it again. There was nothing or no one down there in that basement. And that scared me too. And I was still in the bed, balled up, scared.
That house that my granny lived on, the one, the
Never heard
farmhouse,
it again.
where she'd tell me all the spooky stuff. We used to hear something in the basement down there that sounded like somebody eating potato chips, and people
Oh,
say, "Oh,
that's
it's
odd.
probably termites or something." Not unless they're as big as cats. I mean, I've never heard a termite that could chew wood to where you could hear it. But
Hmm.
somebody did.
That could be
There was,
electricity. Spark.
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know, but it sounded like somebody eating potato chips. Me and my cousins heard it. My uncles went down there with flashlights and looked, and they couldn't hear it or see anything. Of course, it stopped, and it started back after they left. Sounded like somebody eating a bag of potato chips. But that cellar basement of that house, there was a couple of little windows way up high. Well, one time somebody had got in there, got in the basement, and come up the stairs, and almost broke into the house. And they didn't have a regular lock and chain. They had what's called a buckle. You probably know what I'm talking about. It's
The
a little piece,
slides.
no, it's a little piece of wood nailed into
Yep. Okay.
the door frame, and you turn that little piece of wood,
Like on
and
a
that,
gate, outside gate, or
yeah. But
little shed door. Yeah.
that was all. Then now they put her locks and chains and stuff up there after that happened. But whoever had hit that so hard that the nail had backed out of the door frame about an inch or so, another good whomp or two, they would have been in the house. But anytime we were up there, and two of my uncles lived up there with her in their own places on the same property, and we'd been down at one uncle's one night, and Frenchie was staying with my grandma at that time, and they're both widows. Excuse me. And because they'd been away from the house a little while, Grandpa or Grandma wanted my Uncle Frank to go up there and look and make sure there wasn't anybody under the beds upstairs. She was always afraid somebody's going to get in the house and hide upstairs.
Oh, your Uncle Frank, the one that you were reading stories by
Yeah.
last week, a
Oh
week or
no,
two
no,
ago.
that's Frank Stockton. This was my
Okay.
other Uncle Frank on the other side of the family. But that was Frank Stockton was a great uncle or great uncle. But anyway, Frenchie, ever the cut up, she said, "Yeah, go see if there's anybody under the bed." She said, "If it's men, leave two of them and tell the rest of them they got to go." But they never did catch anybody in the house. But you can hear stuff. I've been in there and heard stuff walking around upstairs.
Yeah. The two-story house I lived in. I'm 3 years older than my sister, but she saw stuff at that house. There was some kind of, let's see, the old rocking chairs, and there was wheelchairs back in like the 30s that looked kind of like a rocking chair.
Yeah,
Kind of like
those
the,
old
I don't
wicker
know, a
wheelchairs.
rounded back. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the little holes in it in the backing, and the arms were kind of rounded.
We say goodbye to Tiger Lily real quick. That's my girlfriend here. She's 2 states
Oh,
away,
yeah, go ahead.
time zones away. Sleepy time for her. Good night, baby. Love you. Thanks for being here. I'll talk to you
Hope I
soon.
didn't bore you too much, Tiger Lily.
Dream about me because I will you. She's my
Bring
sweetheart.
home, tell her about the bacon.
Oh yeah, Tiger Lily, heat up the skillet because Daddy's bringing home the bacon. I always say that
There
on
you
the
go.
show because everybody throws bacon around over there. Tell all your animals I said hi. She's got cats and dogs. Now, I'm
My
sorry, you were
sister,
saying about the high back, the cane, wicker, rocking chair, wheelchair. I've seen one of those moved before.
oh, that is creepy when they start moving by themselves. But my sister claims to have saw an old man. Now, she described him in certain ways. I can't remember something about the eyes. I don't know if they were white or red.
Probably
She's
red.
around here
Anything
somewhere.
weird seems to have red eyes.
Maybe. But I'm thinking, for some reason, I'm picturing that his legs were covered like with a little blanket, a throw or something. Maybe she described it that way too. I'm not sure. But he was just
convalescing that had sat in that chair,
intently staring at her. I guess while she slept, it woke her up. She said something woke her up, and she looked at it. And she could only see it when it was storming outside. The lightning was flashing. It's when she would see it. There was nothing over there in that corner. So it scared her pretty good.
All kinds of there in Solway where I grew up, there used to be a guy they call Punkin Bill. I don't know how he got that name. Punkin is a pumpkin for those of you that don't speak Southern.
That's right.
But this guy that lived up on the ridge there called Punkin Bill. Well, one night a tornado came through there and tore up a bunch of stuff, blew Pumpkin Bill's house away. He survived, but there was two sisters that were living together. They were elderly spinster. I think one of them might have been a widow, and the other one was just a spinster, never married. Again, that's a Southern thing, a spinster woman. But they were laying there, and it was lightning and the wind howling and stuff. And the one lady thought she saw what looked like a spider on a web coming down from the ceiling. Says it was just a straight, like a spider coming down on a piece of spider web. But when it got to the ground, it turned into the shape of a man and walked out the door.
No.
And she's like, I don't want to say, because her sister was younger than her, even though she was, of course, a spinster in the hills. She might have been 16, 17 years old. Who knows? Because they got married young back then. But that kind of reminds me that something wicked this way comes, before a big storm come, by the pricking of my thumb, something wicked.
I say that sometimes.
But
yeah, I think of that phrase.
If
the storm's coming, I'm like, it's not going to be good.
Just a silvery thread that she would see it when the lightning flashed, kept moving. When it hit the ground, it turned into the figure of a man with a hat, and he walked through the wall.
Well, some would say that was ectoplasm or something.
Yeah, or the Hat Man or Shadow Person. She wasn't going to say anything. She didn't want to scare her sister. She thought her sister was asleep, but then they were sleeping in the same bedroom. And the next time the lightning flashed, she saw her sister was sitting up all wild-eyed. She said, "Did you see that?" And they both saw it. And I don't know what that was, but it's, some kind of omen, some kind of, I love you too, Tiger Lily. And Cathida, she says she enjoyed listening to you.
Oh, thank you, hon.
She's from Indiana, so she
I have family up there.
Down south. My cousin Byron went to Indiana looking for work. Now, my dad's sister and her husband lived up there. She was a teacher at Ball State, and he worked for Warner Gear. So I spent some miserable summers in Indiana, unfortunately, when I was a kid. They were on well water. It made me sick. Yeah. I asked her today. I was talking to her over Facebook Messenger, the voice thing. And I said, what, like if you're from Tennessee or Tennessean, I said, are they from Indianans? And she said, no, we're Hoosiers. We're just Hoosiers. So there you go. But,
I do have a little story, and there is some validation in it that took, I don't know, 25, so many odd years. Kind of a little bit.
Beautiful bean footage. Let's
hear it. That cracked me up. Me and my sister lived in a two-story house. So several things happened there. Okay, first off, we'd been living there a good while, and I'd already had a few things happen, and so did my sister Pamela. And over here, my parents talking. Like I've told you before, when I was a kid, I was always dropping news. I was listening in, not just to be nosy, but I was wondering why couldn't I hear? Why wasn't I allowed to hear? I would pick up.
Just that much more interesting. What am I not supposed to hear?
Yeah, and I always found it interesting. Anything paranormal that came up, or anything I thought might have been creepy or strange, Well, after I've lived there for a little while, over here, my parents talking. They were talking to somebody, but they said that before we moved in, we were told that the little boy that used to live here always had trouble zipping up his pants, and something would zip up his pants for him.
Uh-oh.
His mom's like, come here, let me zip your pants, because she knew he had trouble zipping his pants. I don't need you, Mom. So-and-so helped me, whatever he called the ghost. There was cats that wound up inside the walls. Don't know how that happened. My dad had to knock out walls, get the cat out. And it happened more than once. He went around outside, blocking everything up, anything up on the roof. Yep. Don't know how they done it. Cats would be cats.
Well, I used to hear cats under the crawl space that weren't there. So I wanted cats. I went down there looking for them. There was no cats under there. And I heard
that's a cat of wampus.
From the time I was a kid until the last night that I stayed in that house, I was 15. My mom and dad had already moved everything. My bed was already moved, but there was still a few bigger valuables in the house. And I agreed to stay there overnight so nobody broke in. And I slept on the floor. And my last night in that house, I heard those cats in the basement. I'd been hearing them since I was 7 or 8 years old. I remember one time I had a friend come over. I was I was probably 8, 7, something like that. He was a year younger than me, and he was laying on the floor reading a comic book, and he jumps up and he said, "Hey, did you know there's cats under the house? There's
Yeah.
nothing under there but a crawl space." I mean, literally, you couldn't stand up. Even when I was a kid, you had to hunker down, and the farther back you went, the smaller it got. I went through every inch of that place with a flashlight. There was no cats under there, but it was
No
not. It
evidence
was,
of
it was kittens.
cats.
It was kittens, and they wouldn't have stayed
Oh,
kittens for 7 or 8 years. But I heard
not
them
the way you
again.
heard them.
But
Car-
my parents
You
never
know, a
could
cat
hear
from
it.
kitten.
Yeah, but it was muffled. It was coming up through the floor. There was no doubt they were under me, and I was on the high end of the house where the crawl space was about 2.5, 3 feet tall.
I just
But
thought
there
of Edgar
was
Allan's poem,
the
Edgar
black
Allan
cat.
Poe's poem about um, pretty much where his mind's. He tells on himself because his mind's eating at him. The murder.
Or
What
Murder in
is
the
that?
Rue Morgue, or no, that's what is the one where it was they buried the guy under the floor? The Telltale Heart.
Yes, there you go. I thought of that for some reason.
Hey,
I
Wild
guess
Gaming with Jimbo. Welcome in, buddy. Good to see you. Thanks for joining
under the
us here.
floor. Me and my sister both would hear. It was an old like plantation house. To tell you the truth, it was an old farmhouse. We found a safe out there in one of the buildings. We never could get it open. The owners finally got that. I don't know if they ever found out what was in it, but somewhere, maybe it was in the wall that my dad tore up to get the cat out, or knocked in to get the cat out. But my mom, she still has it somewhere, and I'd love for her to find that, and I'll take a picture, share it with you. You said you knew where the house was. It's on the left, way back off the road before you get to Tunnel Hill on the right.
Yeah, I know Tuttle Hill. I've been there.
There was the house with the stone columns. The stone columns. The house was built like in the 1700s, I think, late 1700s, or might have been 1800s, but 1700s, or it was 1870 something maybe. And there was a barn. If you were facing the driveway to look down towards the house, there was a big barn off to the right. And I always thought the barn had this different kind of shape to it. And I guess because there was no other one like it around, really. My mom found a picture in the wall. And it might have been what they call the tintype or something.
Mm-hmm.
It had a amber color like to it. It might have been where it's aged or something. I'm not sure.
Sepia tone. A lot of the old photography.
Yeah, I couldn't think of that word yet. But you know how in old pictures is, as I say, back before people smiled for photos.
Well, you had to stay still because they had to expose the plate for so long.
Yep.
That it was easier to keep a stern face than it was to hold a smile.
Mhm.
That's why people looked so pissed off back then. The photographer was under, he had the big frame camera under a black thing, and then they would
They've been
actually
sitting there.
set off flash powder to
Yeah.
expose the negative. But it was easier just to, look like that than it was to sit there with a smile plastered on your face for 2 or 3 minutes while he got his act together.
I'm trying to think. I'm going to say there was a group of men, like 4 to 7 of them. It might have been 5, 6. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I just remember that they were men, all on horseback. So apparently there was no automobiles. They were all on horses. They had those little round glasses. 1 or 2 of them. I do remember at least one man wearing the glasses. And that same barn is in the background. So I don't know what aged or circa or whatever to put on that picture. Little round glasses. They wasn't smiling.
From that type of photography came into vogue around the late 1800s, early 1900s.
And I don't know how.
Tones.
I don't understand how that picture would have got in that wall. Or
yeah.
Even if somebody had repaired the wall.
The stuff they found in old walls, so the old lath and plaster walls, I know, like at my grandmother's house, when they tore that out, they found all kinds of stuff stuck in between the walls. They found a pistol in there that was probably from the early 1900s that had probably been used in the commission of a crime, and that's why somebody hid it in the wall.
Not coins, but money, paper money.
Yeah. They found an envelope full of paper money there was silver certificates. It wasn't a whole lot of money, but it was old, and somebody had, course, it was a few $100s face value, had put it in the wall.
They'd like to put that stuff in chimneys too. Now I wouldn't dare put no paper money in a chimney. I don't care if it is
Well,
summertime.
and then a lot of people had a rock on the hearth that you could move, and they'd hide stuff under the hearth too. So,
Mm.
these old houses, when they're tearing them down, they find all kinds of stuff. My dad and my
I like
brother
that.
found the treasure map one time. They thought it was some kids
Oh, cool.
playing, but lightning had struck the old house and knocked part of the chimney down, and then it was behind a rock in the chimney, but it had rained on it. Then we found out years later there was a guy from California came to visit some relatives he had that lived in East Tennessee. He had heard about a buried treasure there on that property where we live by those 7 springs, and he had a thing called a Spanish dip needle or Spanish dipping needle, and
Like a
he
pendulum or wand or
yeah,
rods.
some of them are like that, and then there's ones where you have a witness chamber where you put what you're trying to find in it, and then it looks it's like almost like a dowsing rod, but it's metal, and it's got a thing out on it, and it'll point or dip, or the needle on it will move. There's 2 or 3 different ones, but
That one sounds cool.
he got a really strong pull from out in our mailbox, which the driveway was 212 feet long. I know that because I measured it back when I was doing bicycle races in the driveway. I'd race my friends anytime
Speed and distance and
see how far the end of the driveway and back was almost 450 feet. But from our mailbox all the way down at those springs, which is probably a half a mile or better away, it pulled from up there. And he never could find anything, or if he did, he didn't tell us and came back and dug it up. But there was supposed to be some gold buried down there by those springs.
Oh, I can remember when I was a kid, I thought I found the biggest treasure ever. I was in Indiana. I was outside the back steps, facing the steps up toward the house had been on my right. I was in the corner to, where the highest step would be, back in the corner against the house. And I started digging up quarters. Another quarter, a quarter, altogether $2 worth of quarters. I kept digging. I'm like, that's it? There's no more? Really? Who buried just $2? I go in and tell my mom. Apparently, I got my sister in trouble. They were missing $2 in quarters that had been on the table like a week before. I happened to go out and pinpoint it and dig it up. And I had no clue what she had done. But, yeah, I thought it was some kind of treasure. Oh, I can't hear you. What did I do now?
It was me. I had my mic muted. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. It was a spooky
That's
show.
twice that happened to me today.
You know who Alice Cooper is, right?
That is the ugliest woman I've ever seen.
Well, anyway,
Johnny Depp said that on a
my
vampire movie.
friend
Sorry,
out in
yes,
Las
I know.
Vegas, she would do like this spokesmodel work for like the conventions. Well, one time she got hired to be a caddy at a celebrity golf tournament, and she actually caddied for Alice Cooper. She brought him home for dinner. I didn't.
Wow.
She called me on the cell phone. She said, "Steve, what are you making for dinner?" She couldn't cook, so I usually cook for the both of us. And I said, "Well, I'm making spaghetti." And she said, "Is there enough for a third person?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And she said, I'm bringing home a friend named Vince, or whatever she said. Oh, yeah, whatever. Well, she gets there. I'm in the kitchen. I see her truck pull up. This guy with long hair and a bunch of tattoos and a ball cap gets out. And I thought, oh, Lord, what's she dragged in here now? Because she was always bringing home some kind of weirdo. Well, they come into the living room, the entryway foyer there into the dining room. I'm still in the kitchen. I had a plastic bowl full of salad. And she's like, "Steve, come here. Got somebody I want you to meet." I walked in there. By then, he had taken off his ball cap and his sunglasses. And I'm carrying this plastic salad bowl. And I looked at him, and the words out of my mouth were, "Holy bleep, you're Alice Cooper." And I dropped the salad bowl. And he's like, "Yeah, that's what they tell me." Anyway,
holy chitty chitty bang bang.
He had been his caddy, and he asked her, "Where's a good place to eat that, that's not crowded, where I can eat in peace and not be bothered?"
She said, "My house."
Go over to my house. My roommate's a good cook. So Alice Cooper had spaghetti with us. And the story he told, this is what made me think of it. When he was a kid, he said if he needed money, like if he needed $1, he'd steal a 5 out of his mother's purse, get what he needed, and then put the change in his sister's underwear drawer.
Oh,
his mom would find it. And then,
of course,
she's putting her underwear away, and their mom is, and like, wait, what's this money in here? I'm missing $5. You spent
I'm
it. This is
innocent. I was framed. Yeah,
I
of
was
course you
I don't know
were.
what you're talking about. I never seen it. I never put it there. Sure. There you go. But that's Alice. That's a true Alice Cooper story. Vincent Fernie is the guy's name. He is the most humble, friendliest man you've ever met. He's a Christian. He talked about his testimony, how he almost drank himself to death back in the 70s and stuff. But he's a really, really good guy. He was cool.
A lot of it's a persona or
Very,
a character. You know, they.
yeah, Alice Cooper is a character he portrays. But the biggest butthole in Las Vegas was Barry Manilow. He didn't come over for dinner. I would have fed him something that would have made him sick. But he was just, I've told that story out here before about how he was mean to people, the help at the Hilton. But ain't no love lost on Barry Manilow. The other nicest person I met out there was Wayne Newton. He is just the most.
Oh, and Joan Jett.
No, well, that wasn't in Las Vegas. That was in Knoxville.
Oh, well.
Fair, 1982, August 25th. She was opening for Cheap Trick. I interviewed her at the World's Fair Park. Asked her to walk down with me. Well, I wrote for the College Music Journal. It wasn't really for school, but I was on the college entertainment board too. And asked her, my friends, my dorm mates don't believe I'm interviewing you. Will you walk down with me? And so
to show them up, buddy.
I was the last person. Yeah. I said, would you just walk down with me? My roommates think I'm lying. And I start walking toward the elevator. I hear this, and I turned around. She's a little bitty thing. She's standing there with her hands on her hips, tapping that Converse, got her head cocked to one side. And she said, if we're
eat your heart out, boys.
We're going to walk out together. We're going to walk out together. And she held out
her
she's
arm. Having her toe getting your attention.
Yeah. And I saw she was put out with me. So I went over and took her arm. We got in the elevator together. We rode down. We walked out arm in arm. My dorm mates were standing outside the door where that freight elevator opened up.
And the best part's coming up.
The best part, she had given me a backstage pass. Now, it wasn't one of the all-access laminates that you wore around your neck. It was the little cloth ones that you had to stick on your leg or on your shirt or whatever. It was limited access. But she'd given me a backstage pass. And I'm like, well, thanks again. Thanks for the interview. I'll see you tonight at the show. Held up my backstage pass. She grabs me, my head, in both hands.
In front of your buddies.
In front of my buddies and kisses me square on the mouth.
Joan Jett. Yep.
Joan Jett. I'll see you tonight, Steve. And I could have died. My buddies are dying over here. I'm like,
yeah, you got to play it cool in front of them, though.
I'd lost my cool by that point. I said, I'll never wash these lips again. That's my Joan Jett story. And
the toe tapping in the Converse.
I remember that. She liked to wind people up. And when she found out my friends didn't believe me, she's like, let's go show them. Let's put them on a show. So
Spunky for what, 5'1"?
Yeah. Maybe 5'2" in her Converse. But yeah, she had those hands up, and she was looking at me, had that head cocked over, that 1 foot, tap, 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 tap.
Like you should know what she's. You know what you're talking about. Get over here.
If you're going to walk me out, if we're going to walk out together, we're going to walk out together. And then she stuck her arm out, and I thought, oh.
Yeah, we're going to do this right.
But that's probably
a great story.
That's the highlight of my life. Up until I met Tiger Lily. Sorry, Joan, but I'm taken now.
Yeah, you didn't get to bring home the bacon for Joan, but you can for Tiger Lily. I mean, how old were you at the time?
I was in my early 20s. I was in college. 1982, I was 19 years old. And
the way you talk, you were like a good-looking fella back in the day, huh? Like a living doll when you was a boy?
When I was a little bitty kid, I don't know what happened to me since, but
did you ever find any of those photos?
My sister-in-law's got them. I'm going to try to get some from her. But no, when I was in college, I'd been kind of the whole goth punk metal thing. I played in some bands and stuff, so I looked weird. Now, not at that point, but later on, I had real long hair. I dyed it black. I used to paint my fingernails black. I'd wear eye makeup and stuff.
The combat boots, kind of like what they call maybe emu or something.
Emo, it was before.
Oh, emo. I said emu. I'm sorry. I used to always call it emu.
I still do, I guess. But it was prior to emo, but post-punk.
My daughter would be like, Mom, it's not emu.
Went from punk into goth, kind of into the new romantic thing, and then back into goth and then into punk or again metal bands, post punk and metal. But I played in some bands. I was a bass player. The reason I picked the bass was that was the one instrument where you could still party and have a pretty good time. Now I drank in college. You could party and have a good time, but still know your part. If I played guitar, I had to concentrate on what I was doing and watch myself. Bass guitar.
Then you start swaying. You can't be doing that.
So I could have a few drinks and play bass all night long. So I played the
I
bass.
must
But
have been a musician
I
in my
think I
former
told that
life.
story too. I came up with the perfect name for a punk band. The name was Free Beer.
Free beer.
Free
That's
Beer.
going to catch everybody's attention.
There were a lot of little bars there on campus in Knoxville, Cumberland Avenue. We've got some UT alumni that come to this stream. Cumberland Avenue runs right through the middle of campus, and there's all kinds of bars and pizza joints and stuff. And I thought, that's the perfect name. That's the perfect marketing. It worked later on for Bare Naked Ladies out of Canada. You see that on the marquee here tonight, Bare Naked Ladies. Hey, let's go. And I thought,
Yep.
Free beer. Hey, we'll pack the place out. So the first club we went to, give the guy our demo tape, and we weren't very good, but we were loud. I borrowed that from Cisco. She was in a punk band too, had purple hair about the same time. He played the demo tape, and he's like, you guys are good. But he said, there's no way in hell I'm going to put Free beer up on the marquee. He said, yeah, you'll fill the place out.
How about Stampede?
And he called them a-holes. He said, when those a-holes figure out that Free beer is the name of the band, they'll tear this place apart.
It'll be pretty mad.
And I said, what could be more punk rock than that? And he said, well, yeah, but not in my bar. And it was
Free beer band.
Everything, everywhere we went. Well, then they knew that was the whole point. It was a marketing thing. For tonight, free beer on a college
I can't
campus.
sing. I can't play an instrument. So, I can't do a lot of music.
Tune in a bucket, and our lead singer had to
I must got holes in them.
We were so loud, but like I said, we weren't very good, but boy, we were loud.
Hey, I'll try my best. I don't care. But,
little clubs, maybe 100, 200
I'm just
people.
not good at it. And you saw early U2 perform where they were
teenagers. They were the opening act for the J Gals band.
Yeah, I couldn't think what you call it.
I was on the campus entertainment board, and I would take shifts at WUTK, which was the campus radio station, broadcasting live.
They outshined
1,000 milliwatts. That's what we used to say. Yep. It was 1 watt. You could just hear it just to the edge.
Didn't go far.
Didn't go very far. But the bolt from Andy Holt, broadcasted from Andy Holt Tower, but we were actually in the basement of Andy Holt Tower, was what everybody didn't know. But yeah, I was in the campus entertainment board and worked at the college station, and I'd been playing some U2 cuts. They were brand new. I can't remember what their first album was, War, Boy, October, one of those. And so we booked in the Jay Giles band for the alumni gym. Held like 2,500 people, but that was if you filled up every seat. They wouldn't sell the sides where you couldn't really see the stage. So the balcony and the bleachers, it was bleachers, and the floor, you get about 2,000 people in there. Same night, there was a planetary alignment, and Rod Stewart was playing over at the Civic Coliseum. But since I was on the campus entertainment board, we'd booked Jay Giles in there. Honestly, I would much rather have seen Rod Stewart. I've seen him since then. He had a residency in Vegas. He comes out and kicks soccer balls into the audience.
What was some of their famous songs? They had 2 or 3.
Jay Giles band had the #1 album in the country. They had been, I think it was #1. It was way up there. They'd had some minor hits with Love Stinks and
Centerfold
and Show Please, but it was the Freeze Frame album. It had Freeze Frame, Centerfold. Trying to remember what else was on that. There were several songs on there that were in heavy rotation.
Big hits at the time.
But it was the second night of U2's first American tour ever. They were teenagers. They were like 17, 18, 19 years old. They were kids. I was probably their age or maybe a little older than, I can't remember which one was the youngest. I want to say the drummer.
Now, did they have their own songs or were they covering songs?
Oh, U2, yeah, they had an album out and had more albums on the way. But they absolutely, they had nothing to lose. The band they're opening for, #1 record in the country, Centerfold, Freeze Frame, Jay Giles, MTV. So they went for broke. Bono was up, like climbed up in the lighting and is walking around on the lighting rig. The bass player, that is still the
Have you
loudest
watched it?
bass I've ever felt. I had to cross my arms over my chest, and I was
Oh
that
yeah, I
point
remember you
out in
saying
the
that.
crowd watching, but you didn't hear it, you felt it. Every time he hit a low note, my chest felt like it was going to explode. Well, after they finished up, I went backstage, and U2 did like
What?
5 or 6
I
encores.
can hear you.
They just would not let them leave the stage. And I'm standing back there talking to Peter Wolf, the lead singer from Jay Giles. They're getting ready to go on. And he's just like, he's got his head down. He's shaking his head. He's like, man, he said, we can't follow that.
That's
And
the main show.
I'm like, come on, you're the opening hour, the headline act. You've got all these singles on MTV. You're the number one album in the country. And he said, but listen at that. But that just spurred them to go on and put on one of the best shows they've ever put on. As I've seen Jay Giles a couple of times since then. Peter Wolf's dead now. But they had to go for Broke 2 because the opening act was so good. They had to just, I mean, they opened up with Centerfold. I think usually the band won't play its hits until later on, but they went nuts. So they won the crowd over because everybody wanted U2 to just keep
They made
playing.
a name for themselves there.
But that was incredible. I had the fortunate time to see a lot of bands like that. I saw U2 playing in a little bar called Vic and Bill's on spring break one year before nobody ever heard of them. They played like to maybe 6 people. Everything was gone before it was spring break, and that's what it said on the little poster. REM from Athens, Georgia. These weird-looking guys, and they came out and they played their guts out. The next time I saw them was at the Alumni Gym, and I think it holds like, or no, not the Alumni Gym, Stokely Athletic Center. I think basketball arena. I think it holds 12,000 people. But I knew then when I saw them on spring break, 6 people, they killed it. They could have been playing for 60,000 people. And just it was magic. I mean, I had the opportunity to see a lot of bands in their infancy like that, and then saw some that I thought would be big and they never went anywhere. So there's all kinds.
Oh,
But we've kind of strayed from our supernatural stuff.
Before I forget,
I like to talk.
The 2-story house I lived in, I was talking about how my sister saw the man in the wheelchair. Well, we would hear what sounded like, well, what we knew to be the front door slamming, and we would hear somebody walking through the hallway. You'd hear like a walk, a footstep, and then a thump. That's, a tap, then a thump, tap, then a thump, all the way up the stairs, clear across the floor of the bedroom upstairs, and then it stopped. Sometimes we heard it every night for a week. Sometimes we wouldn't hear it for months. But when we did hear it, it was at least 2-3 nights in a row. Okay, now the validation. There was, supposedly a chair there that rocked and stuff too. But the validation was years later. The man I've been with for many, many years, I was telling you about, his Aunt Ruth told me that there was a man that lived there that was a makeshift doctor and would cut people's legs off if need be, or their arms off, and that he had a wooden leg himself. A wooden leg. That's what I was hearing when I was a kid.
That's wild.
And she said she said, everybody knew that house was haunted. I was like, everybody but me.
Now, I heard a similar story from my dad about a house over there where he grew up, where they would hear something go up and down the stairs at night, and they finally figured out what it was. It was a rat that lived in the house, and it had some kind of big growth on its tail, and when it would jump from one step to the other, that growth on its tail would hit the step and sound like a footstep. So for years, these people that lived there thought there was something going up and down, walking up and down the steps, and it was a rat with some kind of weird growth on its tail that would make that noise. So sometimes there are rational explanations, but a peg leg, I mean, that's...
Yeah, he was a makeshift doctor. No, there's water if you want any. Mike's back. Hi, Mike. Oh, go ahead. I don't want one. I don't like it. Yeah, but it had the odd sound to it. We didn't know. We thought somebody it was a ghost or something because somebody was injured and dragging their foot or something. Maybe they had a cane, or apparently it was the wooden leg I was hearing.
Wow, that's
The
amazing.
softer footfall, then the thump.
Who's the guy? What
And
was it?
then,
I'm thinking on The Simpsons, the pirate that had like two wooden
or
legs and two wooden arms. Tap, 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 tap.
wow,
No, it's on Family Guy, I think. Some cartoon, there's a pirate that's got wooden limbs, everything. Well, Cathedra, we've
that
run
just
past
blew
the
my mind
3 hour
as
mark.
an adult.
We've
No,
run
it's
past
not that
uh,
quick.
clock up in the corner of the screen, 3 hours, 1 minute, and a few seconds.
Well,
We
I've told
probably
us,
need to
a few little
wrap it up.
things
We
there.
did tell some supernatural stuff, but before we go, I want you to tell about the glimmer deer. That's my favorite story of yours that I've heard, and
Really?
you haven't touched on it tonight.
Okay, I did forget about that. Um, it's been about 3 years or so ago, I believe, here at my mom's. She has a outbuilding. Oh, who am I kidding? It's a shed. It's a shed out in her yard. Um, and we was out there talking about the kittens or something one night. And I'm just looking at the woods, and all of a sudden, I see an outline that's kind of a smoky grayish white mist like form in the shape of a deer. It's as if it was sprinting or jumping, but it wasn't jumping. Its legs were tucked under, and it just whizzes through the air behind that shed. I'm like, whoa, 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 wait a minute now. I blink and I think about it. I tell my mom what I saw. She drops her head. I'm like, what? I'm not crazy. That's what I saw. She goes to go in the house, and I come in with her. I said, I'm not kidding. I'm not making it up. I know I'm silly and like to joke. I said, but I saw a freaking deer, a smoky deer. She said, I saw the same thing last year. I'm like, no way. She's like, yep.
You know, what in the world is that? Now, I've heard of a not deer that people see. It's a deer, but it's not a deer. It's probably a shapeshifter or something. And I had a guy tell a story one time. He was a truck driver and he'd pulled over somewhere to just relax for a while, rest. And he was sitting there and he saw a deer coming down a hillside. And this was like a 2-lane curvy road through the mountains somewhere. The deer gets to the guardrail, and then he said it changed into a man. He said it was a Native American looking man. It stepped over the guardrail, walked across the highway, stepped over the guardrail on the other side, then turned back into a deer and bounded off into the woods.
Now that's some
Now
serious shape shifting.
that's a shapeshifter and a half right there.
Yeah.
But you hear about stuff like that.
But
This
I
is
haven't saw anything like that before. I have never saw anything since.
Doe, who is very knowledgeable about these things, says that that's
I don't know what that can mean.
a fae
Really?
stag, or a spirit stag of the fae. It's a spirit deer that belongs to the fae folk, the fairy people.
They folk, um,
And didn't you say it was kind of bluish?
maybe a sprite. Yeah, kind of like, maybe like cigarette smoke color.
Yeah, that smoky blue kind of, not
Yeah,
a neon blue or a glowing blue, but just a smoky
yeah,
blue.
a see-through, a transparent grayish, whitish,
Now it was moving,
but
right? But it had
intensely
its
blue.
legs
It was
tucked up,
moving, yeah, but it
like
was already in like mid-jump. It wasn't jumping in action. It was like
creepy.
frozen after it. It was like it had jumped and was frozen and just zoomed
Just
on
kept
by
gliding
and
along.
disappeared. Yeah,
Wow. I think that's
pretty
on
quick, like.
Earth, something like that. What does it even mean? You know, there's
Yeah, I'm like, what is the meaning of that?
I'm one of
I
these. My granny was
That
like
was
that. She
cool.
tried to look for a meaning. What does that mean? What does that represent?
Hmm.
I think it means
I
there's
do
a
that a
ghost
lot,
deer out there by the shed, and I'm going to stay in the house.
like phrases and meanings. They all have
Probably
a,
couldn't hurt you, but it can make you hurt yourself.
they derive from somewhere. Like, just how long is a cotton picking minute? I mean, who thought of that? How long is that?
It is how long it takes you, how much cotton you can pick in a minute. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
How much wood could a woodchuck chuck? If a woodchuck could chuck wood, then there you
Yep.
go.
I was going to say something now. I totally forgot. It was something about, it was a name, and And just who is, how long is a cotton pick a minute? And who is, there's another phrase.
Who's the they, and that's what they say.
No,
That's
it's
what
like
they say.
John Hancock, but we all know what that's. Put your
Yeah,
John Hancock.
but your John
It's a,
Hancock, he had the
it's a
big
name.
flowery signature that took up most of the Declaration of Independence. Now,
It's a name. I
my
can't think of
relatives,
what I was going to say now.
I can't remember if it was Benjamin Stockton or Richard Stockton, but I also signed that document. But John
Mm.
Hancock's got the big one.
My name is, it's an old Pict name. For like Nachton, which was a boy of one. Of course, a boy. A family of, the only person left, I guess, was the boy. And they took a shine to him for some reason. And he done good things. And they named him, which stood for something. I can't remember. And then later on, the name became, they were like, I don't know these people, and I'm not royalty, but these people were pretty classy people for back in the day. The king chartered them, gifted them a castle, Dunderave. John McNaughton built it. The name turned into McNaughton. So
There you go,
the family name McNutts came from that.
Yeah, that's a Scottish name.
Our hillbilly Annunciation came from that too.
And there's a theater.
Yes, it's huge.
Of it now. But hey, Dogface, welcome back, buddy. Good to see you.
I told you about my ancestors' little bitty castle, puny castle. It's like one room of the castle that you showed me in the link. I'm like, whoa, no, that's a castle.
But sadly, it's gone. Yeah, there's a movie theater built on its place now. I don't think any part of it still exists. It had been in ruins though since I think the 15 or 1600s. So I reckon my people could get along with anybody.
They were with the
McNutt. That's all kind of the same names. Yeah.
McNaughton, McKnight, McNitt, something else. And Mac stands for like son of.
Mm-hmm.
Now, am I wrong, or did they used to name people after your father's your profession, like John Blacksmith?
People like that were shoemaker or Cooper. A Cooper was a person, I think, they built barrels or something like that. But yeah,
cobbler,
a lot of times, cobblers' shoes, and there's a lot of people had names like that. And then
I couldn't find any information about that out.
Scandinavian names like that, like Magnus, literally son of Magnus. Magnus, Swanson, son of Swan. That's
your last name would be your father's, kind of like your father's first name, which derived from Nachton, McNaughton, I guess, because that was that kid's name when he grew, then he grew up. But there was a McNaughton that helped in
there's a Fletcher,
Jack the Ripper case, the Jack the Ripper case, worked on Oak Island. I'm fascinated with Oak Island. There's got to be something there.
I watched that dang show they've got out there now.
I know they kill me with that
every
show.
Time it's like, well,
there's that right there.
And we're this close. And then you watch it, and then something always happens. The equipment failed. The hole fell in. This old
as long as they keep finding stuff.
And then think, I'm done. I'm not going to watch it anymore. And then this week on Oak Island, what did they find? And you think, oh, this is it. And I'd heard a story.
I like that old man on there.
News. Excuse me. Where somebody had seen a bunch of like vans and stuff had piled in there, and there's a bunch of people and something going on. They thought they finally found something, but then if it is, they haven't revealed it yet. But I mean, it's infotainment. I mean, it's based on true legends and stuff.
I don't really want it to. I don't want it to
end. Books when I was a kid, but somebody went to a lot of trouble. If you look at the construction of that inlet there, and the way the reeds and the moss and the rocks and the coconut husk and everything, it was made.
And they was red clover style.
And they have found some stuff in there. They found the links of gold chain. They found some old parchment paper and things.
Yes.
But I'm not even sure they're digging in the right place, because people used to just show up there and dig anywhere. And there's so many holes. At one time, there was a tree, and you could tell on the tree, the kids that originally discovered it, where there had been a block and tackle attached to a tree limb where they had lowered whatever it was down into the pit.
McGinnis was one of them. Yeah. I heard something about red clover, and the red clover
Yeah. Well, then there was
was
also
from
a guy that
elsewhere.
had lived there. I think he had been a former slave, and he became very wealthy
Oh
in his old
yes,
age. I
turnip
would not.
farmer or
I
rabbit
wouldn't doubt if
farmer or
he.
something.
I wouldn't doubt if he didn't find it and just kept quiet about it. So there
They
may not be
found
anything
some
in that hole.
goodies on on where his property lines were too.
But
One of
it's
the
still
oddest
entertaining.
things I think they found has
Mhm.
no monetary value at all. Now, I would like for them to find that big slab stone. Here below lies
No.
so many feet, 40 feet below. I wish they'd find that. What happened to that is the printing press or something like that was using it and working on it, and they thought they might have found it, but it's so worn down you can't make it out. Even with the laser technology, they think it might be it, but even the laser technology is still iffy. But the finds that I think was most peculiar was two different bone fragments from two different people, and I'm not sure about one of them, but on one of them, the ancestry was from like, I don't know, I think like
Vikings or
Jordan,
something from
like
the
Jerusalem or
Middle
Jordan,
East or
somewhere.
somewhere.
Yeah,
Somebody that those people had
yeah.
never been in that area. I remember that. So
And the
there's
bones were
some
so
history
old.
there, and I
Yeah,
think that
that's
there
odd.
were people that visited there, pirates and who knows what all.
They
So
may have been one of the alien abductees and one of the missing 411 back in the 12
there
or
you go.
967.
Dropped off on the island there.
Yeah. From Jerusalem, found on Oak Island. Okay, now there's the McNutt Island. In the grand scheme of things, not too far from Oak Island. And I keep thinking maybe they got the wrong island. The treasure's on McNutt Island. But yeah, right.
Good night.
Sure.
Are you kidding me? Thanks for joining us. You got work
All right,
tomorrow.
I'm boring everybody.
Come back tomorrow night and see us. Dice Roller will be here talking horror and some paranormal and some witchy stuff. Sounds like. And then Saturday night, Bree, Thin
Witchy
Lizzy Gordon will
woman.
be here reading tarot
We
cards
love Thin
and
Lizzy.
oracle cards. Thin Lizzy's great. She's a natural psychic. I mean, she's not one of these people that
It's
has
in
to
her
work.
blood.
It just happens. Her mom or grandmother or great grandmother, it's passed down that lineage, and that's usually
Like she
where
was
it goes.
bred for it.
The women folk in the family, the wise old crone and that thing. I don't know
I think
how I
women are.
got because my mom didn't get much, if anything. I got it all, and my
I think
daughter.
women are more intuitive too because
What's
they
that whole nature nurture type of the feminine side of things? It's
plus they didn't speak up really back in the days. You know, the men spoke up
hunter
and they were
gatherers,
kept quiet.
the
So
women with the cooks
their
and the
minds were more active.
medicine
Yeah,
women and things. It was just women are more in tune to that thing.
yeah, they
But
picked up on a lot more.
again, Cathida, thanks for joining us here. I know it's getting
You're
late there where
welcome.
you are.
I
9
don't even know.
in the dead.
11.
Yeah, so we're gonna come out here. We ran 3 hours and almost 15 minutes. So that's a good show, good length. I like
Woohoo.
to talk.
Hey,
But
you ever need to fill a spot? I'll come back on.
we'll have you back sometime. Let
Gladly.
you
I don't
and
know.
Catherine there, was that her name? Let you and her get together and
Christina,
Christina
my
and
cousin.
compare stories because it sounded like she was remembering some stuff that you don't. Maybe get your mom on here some night. I bet she's got some tales. If
She's
she'd be
shy.
willing to come on, yeah. I know she was getting upset yesterday when we were sound checking, and you said, "I'm going to show you my mama. It's going to make her mad." And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Get that off of me."
You know, I figured she'd be like, "Why'd you do that? I didn't have my hair done, my makeup on. I mean, my nightgown still washing or sweeping the floor." She didn't say anything about it. I'm like, "Hey, mom, real quick," and then
Oh, I
she's like,
thought Christina
"Hi,
left, but she's still here. She says, "Good night, cousin."
love you,
But
cuz."
you all get together and compare stories, and then we'll have maybe both of you come on sometime and do a tag team storytelling.
Terry, if you're
Exciting.
still here, Terry, love you too, cuz.
And you McNutts, I don't know if we're kin or not, but I'll claim kin to all of you. On my Frenchie's side, kin by marriage anyway.
We're fellow
But
Tennesseans and fellow hillbillies. That's kin enough.
yeah,
we're a kin.
branch kin is what they used to call that. That's something my dad came up with
What
when
was it?
people branch kin, BRANCH, but it's not as good as it sounds.
You're in the
Like,
tree somewhere.
well, if you
We're
lived
all
up here,
connected.
and you peed in the branch, then everybody that down below it that drank out of that water was kin to you.
Oh, you just wanted to be a hippie and peed in your dad's shoes, though, right?
Yeah, I peed in my dad's work boots to protest the Vietnam War when I was about 5 years
Aren't
old.
you
That
disappointed?
didn't work out.
That was
Didn't end
funny.
the world. It brought the war down on my behind from my mom.
If you haven't heard that story, tune in next time.
I'll tell it again. I've
Yeah.
got people will ask me to tell like that none of your business story.
Yeah, that was
People ask
funny.
me to tell that
None of your
all the
business.
time. That's a true story. But
Steve
that is
learned to
not
fly that day.
that's not the
He
correct
learned to
answer.
fly.
When you
Right.
push the chair over and you're standing up on the kitchen cabinets and you're 5
Yep.
years old and you heard
None of
it
your
from some
business.
kindergarten. What are you doing
You
up
learned to,
there?
you
None of
learned
your
to fly.
Yeah, I did. I flew off of that counter, and in midair, I was getting my butt beat. It was
And was
amazing.
in pain, the awfulest pain. Yeah.
Before my feet hit the floor, she'd already got 2 or 3 swats in, yanked me off of the counter by the arm.
I thought that was hilarious. You thought you were just so cool, back talking,
Yeah,
assassin. You heard
that
another
little
kid say
kid
it.
at school, he was such a holy terror. I just became obsessed with him and everything he did, and I'm just like,
He was a bad apple.
Perry
Bad apple.
said that. I got to try that at home. None of your
None of your
business.
business.
And then went back there. I was looking for a pack of Kool-Aid.
You got into all kinds of little mischief, in your mind, little innocent mind. I'm just going to take this apart. I'm not doing nothing wrong. Boy, did Mama get mad. You took
Yeah,
the handles and stuff up your pots and pans.
Yeah. I saw they were held on by screws. I knew when there was a screwdriver out in the garage. By golly, we're in business.
I'm going to take them off here. You can put them back on.
And I did it very quietly. That's how I didn't get caught. I had them all on.
Your dad had to put them together.
I would do that, though. I would take my toys apart to see how they worked. And then I had no interest or desire in putting them back together. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But that's just that innocent curiosity,
You pulled a string and it talked. How's it do that? Took it apart, had a little box in there, opened that box up. There was a little tiny record in there. And when you pull the string, the needle would hit in random places and it would say random things. But it was a little translucent plastic record. And that's all it was. But once
I had curiosity like that.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, did you ever tear open an Operation game or an Etch Sketch or what do they call them?
Yeah,
the Magic Viewer?
I'm
just wondering what they look like.
Broke a Magic 8-ball open.
I like those things. Those
Took it out and took a hammer to it. It was full of this black colored water and a little it almost looks like one of those Dungeons and Dragons dice with several different sides,
It floats around in there.
still had that somewhere. I made a keychain out of it.
And of course, all the possible answers they match about anything, any question. It's set up, of course.
Yeah.
And the Operation,
Magic 8-ball.
that scares the dickens out of you. See, there's another name, and what does that mean? Scares the dickens out of you. Why was Dickens scared? Who's Dickens? There's all kinds of funny sayings.
When I was a kid, that Dickens was a polite way of saying the devil, but I wonder if it doesn't mean because I've heard that to the Dickens with somebody. I assumed it had something to do with Charles Dickens, but apparently Dickens and somehow means the devil. I'll have to look into the etymology of that word and figure it out. But
over a 3-month time, we order. See, there's another. Nobody would know what that means. We order. Are they talking about their aorta, the heart aorta? No, we ought to. We order.
Or you had an order
write down said sayings and phrases and lingo and slang and compare notes like another test.
When I was in the Philippines, my daughter was with me. She was 14. I took her over there one time, and we decided to put on a show for them. We were going to talk Southern. And
just act naturally.
This is how we talk where we're from. Like, Jessica, you hungry? Yeah, reckon.
You don't talk. You talk. TAW. Yeah, there you go.
You don't get some deep?
Like a Foxworthy and them.
All right.
You don't
it's like a Jeff Foxworthy routine. And one of the Filipino family that we were staying with, he's like, what is that language you're speaking? That's not English.
None of your business.
Buddy, that's hillbilly. That's East Tennessee. Now, you mentioned you were from Tennessee. They knew Elvis and they knew Jack Daniels. Anywhere I traveled in Southeast Asia, They knew those
Maybe
two.
Davy Crockett or Daniel Boone, one of those fellas.
Yeah. But they knew Elvis and Jack Daniels.
Now, was it Franklin D. Roosevelt? I think supposedly had a Bigfoot encounter.
I believe that was Theodore Roosevelt.
Theodore, I couldn't think of him. Anyway, we're burning up the clock, ain't we?
I'm not in any real hurry, but my dog's
I'm
looking
not
at me
either.
sideways.
I got to check them out again.
Some of these people.
That one, she doesn't know where she's at.
We'll go for 8.5 more minutes, and that'll put us at 3.5 hours, and
Ding,
then
ding,
we'll
ding.
carry over for the next episode. So we've had some good comments here. Talking about English surnames.
Yeah.
Richie.
I love those. Something, Richie. Did you say Richie, the name Richie?
Yeah, there's a Richie Wright, I think is how you say that.
Oh, okay. Because Mike.
Dogface is talking about the name Richie, apparently, or maybe he's talking about Dickens. Okay. There you go.
My mama told me.
Back to Shakespeare's The Merry Wives of Windsor. It has nothing to do with Charles Dickens, though, according to Michael Quinion at WW, whatever it does seem to have been borrowed. But you always heard that as the devil. That's because there were certain bywords that you didn't say, like instead of taking the Lord's name in vain, you'd say "gadgummit" or "dadgummit" or
"dadgum," "daggone."
Yeah, that was just a polite way.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah, instead of the
shut the front door. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just rambling now. They come to me like. Sometimes I'm quick-witted. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know.
Stuff like that, and trying to remember some of the stuff my mom and dad said. That I mean, they could talk country with the best of them. Now, my dad,
if you don't like it, lump it, get over it or under it.
Scientist out at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, so he had a lot of that educated out of him. But it was funny when he'd go back over to Fentress County, Jamestown, Middle Tennessee, he'd start talking like they did. And even today, like a few years ago when my daughter was living with me, I'd be talking to somebody on the phone, and she's like, "You're talking to somebody back home, weren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" And she said, "I could tell you start talking like they did back in Tennessee." And you just kind of lapse into it. Hey, what's going on? What you doing? I don't know about that, you know.
My Aunt Rhodey, Rowena, she's from Tennessee.
Did you go tell Aunt Rhodey that the old gray goose is dead? You ever heard that song?
I bet she has.
Google it. Go tell Aunt Rhodey. I used to play
with a name like that. It has to be
Rhodey. That the old gray goose is dead. The one she was saving to make a feather bed. It's some kind of old mountain song.
Oh, like a song from the hills.
Yeah, and a lot of those are. Particularly the dulcimer and the mountain fiddle and some of that, it's based in the Irish and Scottish stuff, those Irish reels and jigs and stuff. A lot of those immigrants just brought it over and Appalachianized it.
That's where we get our dialect.
Katie bar the door. You ever heard that one? Well, Katie bar the door.
Yep.
But that's somebody asked me one time, well, what's a Katie bar? Katie is
I don't know.
Bar the door is what you did when you'd put a board. They had a blacksmith would make things that went on the door, and you would literally bar the door to keep anybody from opening it.
There was a Southern slang test that had 30 questions.
You and I both passed it, and I passed.
We both got 30. Right?
There was a couple in there that
I was kind of iffy on.
But like that think about bait. I didn't get that one, but I answered it correctly. I've never heard anybody say to put on a big spread or to put out a big dinner. They'd lay down a big bait. I never heard that.
Been running all over Hill's Green Acre. I've heard of God's Green, all over God's Green Earth. I've never
heard of Hell's Half Acre too. And
yeah, that's what that.
I also heard people say they've been through hell in half of Georgia to get to
something. Yep. I've heard of. There's a wampus cat, and then there's catawampus.
Yeah, totally different things.
Yep. Lord, there was all kinds of fun stuff on there.
We'll come on again some night, and we'll bring some other hillbillies in here. We'll get Aunt Edna up here with us. She's from West By Golly, Virginia, and they say it that way. They don't say by golly, but they say West By Virginia to differentiate it from Virginia. There's a difference. Virginia, those are the the
There's some
bougie
rich history up
people,
there.
bourgeois. But boy, there
Like,
is. You get into Virginia and West
oh,
Virginia.
bougie.
Like I said,
Feeling
but
like
bourgeois, that's what that's short for, the fancy people, the new money. And
feeling
there's some
fancy.
old
I've
money
heard
up
about
there
saying.
too. There's some old cotton money and some
Mm-hmm.
old money in Virginia.
Coal money,
Coal
maybe
money, Virginia, southeastern
mining.
Kentucky. Well, there was a lot of mining camps in there, and those companies got rich off the backs of the miners, and they would pay you
Never
in coal
see.
mine script. Wasn't good anywhere but the company store, so they got you
Mm-hmm.
coming and going. They'd pay you in script. You had to pay it back to them, spend it in their store to get what you needed.
Now, a
And
lot of Irish, they couldn't get jobs at certain places. They were lucky enough to just a lot were being hired in the mines and
yeah,
different caves and
a
dynamite or
lot
whatnot.
of the
And the
Welsh, the
Chinese.
Scottish, they'd been miners anyway. They came over here, and that's why, like where my dad lived, there were a lot of Irish immigrants over there. The Darrow family. A lot of the stories in Strange Things in the Woods comes from a man named Otto Darrow. A lot of my stories on this channel.
Tommy knockers.
He was a first generation Irish born. He was
Let's see.
born here, but his mother was pregnant with him. He was conceived in Ireland, but born in the U.S. But they were some hardcore Irish people. They lived out in the absolute middle of nowhere. I mean, they had to walk several miles into town, and they'd carry their stuff back. They didn't have any farm animals or mules or anything. They just had a bunch of kids. And, here, kids, we got to tote this back home. There's another one, tote something. You got to tote this.
Across the pond.
Help me
And they
tote.
were harder to document too than people, Americans at the time.
Yeah.
I
But
mean, our
anyway,
names were
people that
mixed
were
up.
here
And
came here legally. They came over the way they immigrated and went through Ellis Island. And that's why there's Stocktons
yeah.
There's Stocktons in the Carolinas. There's Stocktons in East Tennessee. And then there's some that struck out and went to California, Stockton, California, named after my relatives. And my grandmother, I've got a picture somewhere of her as a teenager when in Stockton, California. And it's hot. That's the hot part of California. She's wearing a long black dress, long sleeves, big old black hat. She was born in 1895.
Just for the picture, probably.
So that was the way you dressed up when you traveled back then. You wore a suit, tie, and a hat.
Plus, if you sunburn easy, you might wear long sleeves briefly.
But black, Lord,
and the big hat. But black, yeah.
She was born, I believe, in 1895. So she would have been about 1910 or so, I guess.
My mama's name on my dad's side was Eula May, Mae. Now she claimed, she done genealogy. She was a Lions. I don't know if that goes back as far as that one queen that was a Lions or whatever in relation. But she claims that we were kin to Barbara Bush. I don't know how. I have no idea how.
I think that Barbara Bush is the illegitimate child of Aleister Crowley. You look at them
together.
Barbara Bush's mother was in England at the time, the late end of when Crowley was active. But you look at an old Barbara Bush and you look at an old Aleister Crowley, there is a resemblance. And her mother was in England at that time, and she was into some of that esoteric stuff. I think
he wasn't the devil; he was just the new devil. He made up monsters.
The daughter of the beast, the great beast, Mr. Crowley. But that's just one of my pet theories. We got about 30 seconds here, but we'll
stay
come back
tuned for this message
sometime. I'm going to get out of here. Cathida, thank you again so much for being here. It's been
I loved you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Finally got to come on. Finally, and to beat all my computer trouble.
Halloween to be on here, but
I'm doing this on my phone after all that computer trouble.
Eric Ashley says it must hurt to be that smart. My head does hurt, but I don't think it's because I'm smart. My dad used to tell me my ears was screwed on too tight. I need to loosen them.
They must be talking about you, obviously.
But anyway, thanks everybody for being here. We just passed the 3.5
hour
mark. I love these gab streams, and I took a poll, and that was one of the things people like was the chill and chat and the guest streams. We've done it all here tonight.
The paranormal. We had a little bit of everything. Paranormal, UFOs.
But tomorrow night, Dice Roller is going to be on here. She's going to.
What time tomorrow?
8 p.m. Eastern time. So
Eastern.
that's 5.
6 where you are.
Yeah, 6 where I'm at, 5 on the West Coast. I get confused. I lived on the West Coast for like 15 years. I moved one time zone east, and I can't tell. I'm lucky to tell daylight from dark, especially now that it gets dark early. But we'll be here tomorrow night with Dice Rolling, talking horror films, horror books. I want to get her take on that new Renfield movie with
Nick.
Dracula being played by Nick Cage. And then she's also into some witchy stuff and some paranormal. So that should be another fun one. And then Saturday night, don't forget Bree. Then Lizzie Borden is going to tell your fortune or you read your cards.
She's good. She's spot on.
A fortune telling deck that she just got so she can do the yes or no questions we had people asking. And everybody that gets a reading will be entered for a drawing. I've got tickets and things that are going to go in a hat. And we got some good prizes we're going to give away. You'll have to tune in to see. And don't forget, if you become a member of the channel, there next to where it says like, share, subscribe, all that, be sure and like, subscribe if you're not already. But click that join button, become a member here. You get a lot of perks. You get a little badge by your name. You get custom emojis. You get members-only chats that we'll have every so often. You get
book giveaways.
New videos first. And the first 10 people that sign up, we had several sign up tonight, I'm going to have a giveaway and give a set of signed books, my books, and it'll be, I'll inscribe them however you want me to, unless it's like, I owe you $5,000, Steve Stockton. I'll write just about anything in the book for you.
And with Bree, you can do dealer's choice where she picks the deck she reads for you, or you can, there's a list that I think Steve put on his wall before. Yeah, the list.
And in fact, I think she's added more. We may have to go in and redo that list. And I
revised it. Yeah.
And I'm just going to show it here real quick.
Spot on. Screenshot.
There's her available decks.
Or whatever.
The Oracle decks on the top, the tarot cards on the bottom. She read for me this last week from that Guillermo del Toro deck. He's one of my spirit animals anyway. When my beard's trimmed and looks short, and I have the little round glasses on, I've even had people tell me we resemble one another. That grunge music tarot deck is something else too. Although I do question the Hanged Man. They have the guy from Soundgarden. What's his name? Chris Cornell.
Chris Cornell.
And he did.
I am the highway.
And indeed, that deck came out after he was deceased. So I thought that was kind of in poor taste, but the Hanged Man is Chris Cornell in the grunge deck.
That's how he went. So, yeah.
Yeah, kind of odd. But anyway, thanks everybody for being here. Cathida, thank you for joining us. Thank your mom for letting us intrude on her space there and keeping her up past her bedtime. But
my dogs have been great.
Mulder only wolfed a couple of times, and me and him got to go see a man about a dog and then get some dinner in us. But everybody
ladies, we have to go see a man about a horse, or a horse about a man.
Have a good night, good morning, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are.
Thanks for sticking around and watching my mug.
Bye, Steve. Guest here, Cathida and ourselves. We'll see you a little further on down the trail. Tell your animals. Said hi. I'm Steve Stockton. I'm out of here. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
I'm Cathida. Bye.